Salutations, everybody, and welcome to Learning the Ropes. I'm XLJ, the OG, joined by my partner in crime, my brother from another mother, Mr. B. Oh,
How we doing out there, world? Hope everyone had a good Christmas, good Happy New Year, and all of that jazz. We've been on here since then, but you know what? It's still semi the holiday season, so why not? I see we already have some friends in the chat. We have Dawn, we have the CDC, who we actually invited on this show. So I mean, I I don't know what's up with that guy. We have Matt Ward. We have our good friend. What's her name again?
well, I'm trying to figure out my mic right now because I think it's got some feedback. Do you hear that, or is that just me?
I don't, but
Ah, well, uh, sorry about that. I was dealing with some technical issues. Who were we talking about? Oh, Bree. Hey, what's up?
good
Is that
job.
is that there? You jerk.
And we got Jaxpo, and we got I am Anthony, or I think that's yeah,
We got some good folks in the chat here tonight. But
yeah,
as
we do.
always, when we start our show off, what do we start it with? A little bit of a
Plugapalooza.
Plugapalooza.
That is
That's
right.
right. So tell us what you got. I'm going to try to fix my microphone.
You go for it. All right. So thank you for joining us here on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. We are so thankful that you have joined us tonight here for Learning the Ropes. You can catch us here each and every single Sunday night from 9 to 11 Eastern. We are going to be talking tonight about the Wrestle Kingdom, and we're going to be diving into the history of Wrestle Kingdom, as well as give you our thoughts on Wrestle Kingdom 17. If you don't know by now, kiddos, the whole gimmick of this show, it's called Learning the Ropes because over here we have the expert, the man that's been a fan for over 30 years, and over here we have the newbie who's just been a fan um, for a little over a year. But hey, look, I have good taste. Look at this nice FTR shirt.
I was watching wrestling when you were in diapers, kid.
That's literally when did you start watching wrestling?
Oh, gosh, in the
Were you
80s.
5?
Yeah.
Were you 5?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's factually correct. So there you go. Okay, I hear the feedback now. So I'll
Keep
keep
doing your
plugging.
thing.
I'll keep plugging away. Um, I'm going. Yeah, I'll keep plugging away. So we invite you to go ahead and like, or not like. You don't do that over here on the Twitch, but you can go ahead and follow the Twitch channel, or if you feel so inclined, you can. You can definitely um, go ahead and subscribe. You can actually subscribe for free. Yes, I said FREE free. All you have to do is if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually get a free subscription to
Whoa.
the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. Just put the link there in the chat. You can click on that link, or if you don't want to click on the link because you love our beautiful faces, you can simply Google it. I mean, it is literally that easy. If I can do it, you can do it. It's
Anybody can do it.
simple. It's as simple as that. And we are sponsored each and every single week by a little bit of rootless coffee.
It's like, where did it go?
Where did it go? Rootless coffee. Rootless coffee. It is a
Damn! Oh my God, Abdullah, the butcher. He just jumped Ron. I guess because he knew we were talking about Japanese wrestling tonight. Abby, what do you have to say? A man of no. Well, there we go. You saw Ron in there live on Learning the Ropes.
A man of few words, but you do know what? You can save 15% off all non-collabs over at rootlesscoffee.com by using the code Panda Coffee.
There you go.
That was my best Jaxpo impersonation. I don't know how good I did, but there you go. So there you go. Now, not only can you catch us here over on Learning the Ropes or on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel, you can also catch us over on our YouTube channel, which is Cole TV and XLJ the OG. Fill us in on what we have coming on Learning the Ropes this week.
That's right, CDC. It is a forking good coffee. what we have cooking for us on Cold TV this week. This Wednesday, you will be able to catch our Wrestle Kingdom 17 reaction show where Mr. B-Roll and myself got to partake and enjoy Wrestle Kingdom 17. And like I say, we're going to do a deeper dive on that here later in the show. You can catch that on Wednesday and Thursday. You can catch a replay of this show. So there you go. That's what's cooking on Cold TV this week.
Yep, keeping it simple over there on Cold TV. I mean, hey, we're still coming off the holidays. I mean, the eggnog's still wearing off and all that
I can
jazz.
pull the curtain back. We are working on a lot of stuff for this upcoming year. So just stay tuned. Got a lot of good things cooking over on Cold TV.
That is right, indeed.
A lot of ins, a lot of outs. But anyways.
A lot of ins, a lot of outs. Last but not least, we do want to plug, we do have some merch. Looks like you are wearing a nice Cold TV t-shirt right there. All over at sweetdollfacecreations.com. We have Learning the Ropes merch. We have Cold TV merch. That's also where you can find the We Are Wrestle Talk merch. And if I could just talk about that for just a moment real quickly. So we've kind of done with our promotion or whatever you want to call it. For the time being, at least we're not going to be pushing it. They're still available on the website, but
yeah, you can still get them. You'll always be able to get them.
Yeah. Just kind of done promoting it for a while.
And it still does help benefit towards the suicide prevention. So, yeah.
But I wanted to highlight because we were able to raise $180.
Yeah.
So I did a live over on TikTok on Friday. We donated the $180 live to the American Society for Suicide Prevention and Awareness. So that was awesome. Thank you for everyone that shared any of the posts or commented or bought a shirt. Greatly appreciate it. Like I've announced before, we're going to plan to bring that back in May. And there we go.
Now, I know CDC was disappointed that Master Watto did not win the IWGP Junior Championship. But anyways.
Hey, Master Watto put on a heck of a show.
He did. He had a heck of a performance, regardless if you like him or not. Like I say, we're going to get into that a little bit more. But folks, we got a lot to talk about here tonight. And we're not alone. We've got some amazing guests with us. So, Mr. B-Roll,
we do.
Why don't you bring them on in, my friend?
Okay, I'm going to get ready to bring them in. Had to take a swig. See, doing that Plug-a-Palooza, I feel like I understand what Excalibur feels like when he's trying to get the card in.
You killed it. Just like the Ginger Ninja said. You killed it, my friend.
All right. But coming in first, had him on the Panda Wrestling Company before. He is a wrestling historian himself. You know him, you love him. Simple Nicholas.
Hi, guys.
How are you tonight, good sir?
Oh, I'm good. You guys are too kind. I know a little bit about wrestling, and I appreciate the invitation to be on with you guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, we are super stoked to have you.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of actually meeting you in person, and you're an awesome dude, and I love that you're all about preserving the wrestling history.
Absolutely.
And I just absolutely love that. So we are honored to have you on tonight. And
hey,
I know there's many of you out there that when you think TikTok and when you think New Japan, this person probably comes to mind. If you're not following this man, you definitely should be. We are honored and blessed to have Wrestling Colin on with us live tonight. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for inviting me. Couldn't really resist an opportunity to talk Wrestle Kingdom. Really excited, guys. I feel like I'm going to learn some stuff on this show too. Like if we're going over all the historical stuff, like the pre-Wrestle Kingdom January 4th show stuff, that's way before my time. So I'm excited. And I also want to say I appreciate that you started your show with some Master Watto slander. I like how we set that tone right away,
Yes.
Gotta love it. And we are super excited to have both of you on here. And Yeah, I mean that's the whole gimmick of the show is we're going to do some learning tonight. If they didn't know by now, like we say in the opening, class is now in session.
Right.
So take it away, Professor XLJ the OG.
All right, living and learning. Well, number one, first and foremost, to me, what I find the most magical about the Wrestle Kingdom shows is the venue itself, the Tokyo Dome. Tokyo Dome by far is easily in my top 5 venues for a professional wrestling show. It's on my bucket list. I want to go there someday, and I know I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why, but I'm going to make it happen. But the Tokyo Dome, you got to talk about the history of that, and you got to talk about its predecessor too, the Korakuen Stadium, which hosted a ton of wrestling shows. I mean, we're going all the way back in like the Ricky Dosan days, for crying out loud. You know, the father of Japanese wrestling. But Korakuen Stadium was a very popular stadium. They had a lot of baseball as well as a lot of popular concerts over the years as well. And Korakuen Stadium was around from 1937 all the way to 1987. Because in 1988, that is when the Tokyo Dome first opened. And then getting into the January 4th shows. So the January 4th shows actually all started, believe it or not, all the way back in 1992. So,
Wow.
And how they got started was actually it was a WCW New Japan Super Show. They actually had 3 of them, but the second one is where it started being January 4th, and just thereafter, the history always has been it's always set on January the 4th. And there's been a lot of great cards throughout the year. I can remember actually as like a kid, because believe it or not, the 2 WCW New Japan Super shows on January 4th, they actually were available on pay-per-view. Now, I didn't actually watch them myself off the pay-per-view, but I had a buddy who had taped one of the shows, and like I could just remember watching as a kid and just being enamored with like this. I mean, it was like a whole new world. Oh, seeing like freaking, you know, this massive dome where it was like other wrestling fans were like, what? And you know, obviously we all know the Japanese crowds are significantly different than the American crowds and have been for years. So, but I just remember seeing that for the first time. What about you guys? What was like your first like real experience with like a Wrestle Kingdom or a Tokyo Dome show? Yeah, I know yours.
This
It
past
just
one.
happened the other day.
Believe it or not, for me, it was way more recent than that. So I'm 34 years old. So, you know, those original January 4th shows, I was if not in diapers, I was, you know, in grade 1, 2, 3, all that stuff. So that's way before my time. My first true, not the first time I heard of it or the first time I'd watched a match, but my first true like, okay, let's sit down live, watch the whole show, the legit experience was Wrestle Kingdom 9. Which was 2015, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
that was the first one that was actually like shown here in North America. I think
that's what attracted me to it because Jim Ross was on it, and he was with Matt Stryker. They were doing the English commentary, and I think, and XLJ, you know, being a historian, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if I remember right, it was like Jeff Jarrett's thing, right? Wasn't it Global Force Wrestling?
Global Force Wrestling, yeah.
They were promoting the English. So somehow that got to me. And I was just sort of like your typical North American wrestling fan at that point. I had watched Japanese matches. I found them like intimidating, but interesting. But I didn't, this is why I started my TikTok. I didn't know what to do or where to go. You see some random match on the internet. You don't know who's in it. You can't understand a word. You don't know the date it was filmed, you know, nothing. So where do you go from there? So I just think, you know, that the fact that I got into it then kind of proves that orienting those shows to an English audience, doing that extra production work, especially having like JR there physically as well. Because with those WCW shows, XLJ, I believe, and since you watch them, you would know, I believe that they just casted them remotely after the fact, like Bischoff and like whoever was on commentary. They weren't there.
It was all recorded. It wasn't like actual live. Yeah, you're right. Matter of fact, dare I say, I think like Jim Ross, I think if memory serves correctly, I think it was Jim Ross and Eric Bischoff were doing color.
I
And I'm
think
pretty sure
Bischoff was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they probably just filmed it in like Turner Studios or something.
No, 100%. And it just makes all the difference in the world to have a live broadcast. I mean, there's just no comparison whatsoever. So it was that effort from Global Force Wrestling to promote it to an English audience. It got right to me. And I remember it like it was yesterday because boy, I never looked back. I never looked back. It was like going from I'm trying to find a reference that is allowed on Twitch, but it was like going from an entry level drug to like the most hard illicit substance. Like you can't go back, you know.
That's a very good analogy. It's interesting you mentioned that show too, because 9 for me as well got me really back into wrestling because I was not watching wrestling hardly at the time. I kind of go through phases, but when I heard about this and I was like, I'm gonna check it out, you know. And if you go back and you watch that show, it's like you say, you don't quite know the stories, but like you get it enough to like understand it and appreciate it. And then it makes you want to kind of do a deep dive and then learn about like how did they get from point A to point B? And then when you find out, you're like, oh, holy crap.
Well, they chose the talent perfectly. I mean, that casting, that talent was wonderful because obviously JR brings in people like he's a knowable face. You can attach a noble voice, attach yourself to him. But Matt Stryker was like a damn encyclopedia. I remember really specifically, he's play-by-play in that specific case. And he's given Ross Wikipedia articles verbally, you know, bringing you up to speed. And it just helped tremendously.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But for me, 9 is what got me hooked on it. And then seeing like some of the athletes on there. I mean, I remember seeing like, and we'll kind of do a deeper dive on this here in a little bit, but like just, I think Togi Makabe and Tomohiro Ishii was on that card and then just beating the hell out of each other for like almost 15 minutes.
You know what was the crazy one for me? I don't know if you guys agree with this. Sakuraba, so Kazushi Sakuraba, and Minoru Suzuki were on that card. And I remember because and again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think the strength of Wrestle Kingdom is diversity of matches, right? There's a lot of palate cleansing. You know, you go from like a crazy 6-man tag, it's flippy shit, to something, you know, 45 minutes, guys in black trunks, etc. So that Suzuki Sakuraba match, which was that real like shoot style, that like MMA style, blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind that pro wrestling could look like that and feel like that, especially coming from, I think the opening or one of the opening matches was the 3 juniors. Tag teams, and the Bucks were in there.
It was like the Bucks, Red Dragon, Time Splitters, and Rocky Romero and
the Roppongi Vice. So like that shit was just backflips and the things that the Bucks do really, really well. And then you go to the polar opposite of Suzuki Sakuraba, and I just was enamored with that.
Yeah. For me, what really was over the top was seeing Shinsuke Nakamura for the first time, and the way the announcers kind of told the story on him, and then when you see him come out, you're like, holy shit, this guy...
his entrance for that? Do you remember that? He had the crown? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. And how they kept going on about like, it's like he's influenced by Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury. And it's just like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. And then you get to see him in the ring. And oh yeah, by the way, he's wrestling Kota Ibushi on this night. It's like, yeah. 9 was just an incredible one. But I mean, if you look through the cards, or I'm sorry, Nicholas, what about you, buddy? What was there an early memory for you from like any of these Tokyo Dome shows that you?
Oh, it would have. My first would have been '92 with the Super Show. That's just the big that was that was my time for being that early '92 with WCW, and then announcing that they were going to work together and put something like that.
And I think that's one thing you'll learn here tonight, too, is that the relationships New Japan has pretty much virtually worked with every company out there. It's just mind-boggling, all the companies they've worked with throughout the years. But that 92 one, I kind of want to touch on that briefly, because, I mean, some of these matches, you're just like, holy crap.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Antonio Inoki against Hiroshi Hase.
Yeah.
Lex Luger against Masahiro Chono. Ricky Chosu against Tatsumi Fujinami. And to top all that, your main event was Sting and the Great Muta against the Steiner brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude.
Yeah. Well,
Dude,
that was really, from my perspective, like I only could see Japanese wrestling if I could tape trade with somebody or through magazines. And that's, you guys had said in our pre-thing about romanticizing. And that's, as a territory guy, Portland wrestling was always spectacular to me because I never got to see it. Only could follow it. Same with Japanese wrestling. I never got to physically, as now, like these new fans have this real treat to be able to, I know it sounds weird, but a treat to get up at 2, 3 in the morning, midnight, and get to watch it live where you have to wait 30 days until PWI or a Gong magazine or something came across it to get this stuff. That's what I really appreciate now. I think is so rad. The diversity of all this stuff, and now you get the opportunity. You don't have to wait. You can watch it, and just experiencing it live is a lot. I don't know how to put that. It's a lot more thrilling, and I think you become a little bit more of a fan of it. You enjoy it a little bit more. That's not spoiled, if that makes kind of any sense to you.
No, it makes perfect sense because it's just the live aspect versus. Because, reality of it is, by the time you're reading in, your PWI or you're talking to your friends who are doing tape trading, you got to see this match or whatever. You kind of know something's going to happen or know what's going to happen. You're watching it live. You don't know what's going to happen.
It's just, I like what's happening.
Yeah. And it's crazy. When you look at New Japan World and you're talking about, having to dodge spoilers. Gosh, we had to stay off social media for about 24 hours. And
hey, that's not. What about Colin? You had to stay off it for a couple days, didn't you?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Oh no!
It looked like he was frozen there for a second.
I didn't realize that. I thought he was just enamored with the conversation.
Yeah, we can see if we can get him back.
I tend to captivate people into a stare-like stance from speaking. No, I it's really cool. I'm glad that you guys are opening this up and letting people know about this Japan's approach to creating their own Super Bowl atmosphere with these January 4th shows.
And they really have done a hell of a job. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. In my mind, in the world of wrestling that we live in today, it's WrestleMania and then it's Wrestle Kingdom. The WrestleMania is the premier show. There's no doubt about that. But Wrestle Kingdom is the second biggest show in all of wrestling all year.
Well, that's what's really cool when you're going to compare apples and oranges and stuff like that to these shows. If you're a traditional guy that's only looking at what's happening inside the four corners, Wrestle Kingdom can really give you the New Japan stuff. Then when you watch the production value and the stories that the WWE gives you, you're dead on there. I think those are for one and two for me. I can't tell anybody their opinion or what they like, but I think
a little something for everybody.
I absolutely, and I really hope that people start giving if you're new to this, you're just watching now, a chance for New Japan, and that opens you up to watching New Japan, All Japan, AAA, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like you can either just straight up all you eat all the time, like pizza and spaghetti. Or you can go to a buffet like us, and we love all of it. Give me my pizza, give me my fried chicken, give me some sushi. Just give it all. I want it all for the palate. So a little something for everybody out there, and that's the great thing about the landscape of wrestling.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's really. I think that's what's really neat right now about this. Not to get away from topic. I know we're in the Wrestle Kingdom realm, but Wrestle Kingdom, and with the Japanese style, and you got to be very careful and ginger when you walk that line about what the traditional values of Puro are and entertainment value of the Western style. But I know a lot of people will maybe disagree, but I like that they're bringing a little bit of both, trying to get you in there too, as long as you keep true to yourself and don't over ramp it and it gets too much. I think that the last couple of years they've done really well.
Yeah.
I think people that don't like false finishes aren't going to like false finishes and that, but
Yeah, I totally agree. Glad to have you back, Colin.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I had a blue screen right in the middle of what Nick was saying, and I was really vibing with it actually and agreeing with him that it's a privilege to be able to watch Wrestle Kingdom live with dedicated English commentary. Even people my age realize that, because even in the 2010s, you're on forums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where that romanticism comes from. You're hearing people talked crazy back then, right? Like, oh, it's real. Someone died in the ring like last time, it's, and this guy, blah, 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 blah. He's like, it was so over the top and crazy, and you didn't know what to believe, and it made it even cooler. But anyways, hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Hey,
but
it happens. Like, I mean, hey, like Sid Vicious would say, hey, we're live, pal. We're live.
It's live TV.
There you go. Real briefly, I want to talk about the 93 show, because that's, I believe, still has the record for the largest gate actually in New Japan shows. I believe it was 63,500 is how many they drew. Now, I don't know if that record still is the same or not, but last I knew it was. But that was a good show too, because you had Jushin Liger against Ultimo Dragon. You had Sting against Hiroshi Hase. Great Muta against Masahiro Chono in a title versus title match. And the Steiners against the Power Warriors, a.k.a. Kensuke Sasaki and Road Warrior Hawk. And, also you got Tatsumi Fujinami on the card, Tenryu against Riki Toshu. I mean, just some good stuff, man. Good stuff. But from there, they kind of go into like where New Japan's kind of doing their own thing, like in 94, 95. They're still working with companies. Interestingly enough, the show they did in 94, because after 93, that's when they stopped working with WCW and on the January 4th show. But they brought in some WWF guys. One of the matches on this card for the 94 show was Hulk Hogan against Tatsumi Fujinami. And by the way, y'all know I do not like Hulk Hogan. I've stated it many times, but I will say this. Watching Hulk Hogan wrestle in Japan is a completely different thing. It is very interesting to see him. There's a great match out there with him and the Great Muta. Actually is a really good match, believe it or not. So you get the Hulkster in Japan, brother, and it's actually not too bad.
He cut some really funny, kind of cool promos as well during various trips to Japan, where he's saying like, IWGP belt is Ichiban. It's #1, brother. The WWE
is just a trinket.
This is just a toy. This is the real belt. And it's just so funny. Like Ichiban Hogan-san. I love it.
I just wonder in his mind, he's like, oh God, is Matt Suda around? Is he going to try to break my leg? But yeah, the 94 card had a couple of WWF wrestlers on it. Now you get to the 95, and by the way, at this point, they're still not really calling it. They don't call them Wrestle Kingdoms to many years later. Actually, what they would do from so the 94 one was called Battlefield. 95 was called Battle 7. And then from there, they just go into, they were referred to as the Wrestling World cards.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a who's of guys that's competed on those cards. I know one year they had a IWGP Championship title tournament. I think it's like 97 or something. But I mean, you got everybody from, and also let me backtrack here. They would work with a lot of different promotions, including in Japan. I mean, they work with All Japan. Later on, they would work with Pro Wrestling Noah, which are still working with Noah to this day. But they bring in like CMLL. Also, and we'll kind of get into this when we're getting to the Wrestle Kingdoms. They also worked with TNA Wrestling a lot too. So, but like that's the one thing that's always amazed me the most about New Japan is just like all the relationships of all the companies that they've been able to work with throughout the years. I don't think there's one company that has like refused to work with them or they haven't worked with. And I think it's all the more interesting too. Like whereas here, we're never going to see WWE work with AEW. At least you wouldn't think. But like in New Japan, this is the thing, folks. You got to put yourself like New Japan was like, and All Japan were like neck and neck against each other, really. And yet they, put their differences aside to work together for these super mega shows.
I think it's worth noting two things. Number one, I think that collaboration you're talking about is a real hallmark of Wrestle Kingdom, not even just New Japan, but Wrestle Kingdom. You always expect somebody from somewhere else to be there. Puts a little extra shine on it, makes it feel a little extra sparkly, I think. And then the other thing is that New Japan, by all accounts, kind of has a bit of a reputation for coming out on top every time they collaborate with someone, whether it's fully justified or not, but it's almost like I've heard it compared to how WWE has operated when it's worked with smaller entities, where they kind of get what they need and what they want, and everything else, very much secondary. So I think that's worth mentioning too.
No, that's a very good point too. And I think if you, I don't know, you can help me with this, Nicholas. At the time when we're talking like in the late '90s, I don't think Baba's not running All Japan at this point, is he?
I don't believe so.
Depends on the year.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with obviously like Baba, the founder of All Japan, and Inoki, the founder of New Japan. So I mean, I think there was. I don't know. I don't want to say there was. I think let's put it this way: a friendly rivalry, so to speak.
I mean, there's definitely a friendly rivalry. I mean, it, goes back so far to that failed hostile takeover attempt that Inoki had in where they originally started, right? Where Baba kind of did his exit peacefully and Inoki didn't, and that kind of tells the story for both of them. And then don't forget, it's not all on Inoki. Like Baba was kind of the equivalent of like I don't mean North Korea in a bad way, but in the way that he isolated his promotion. He increasingly, as he got older, he just didn't want to work with anyone outside. There were exceptions. Obviously, All Japan really well known for its big gaijin heels, right? Yeah. But he got really isolationist was the word I was looking for. Really isolationist as well.
Yeah, because if you look at the guys, if you look through these cards all throughout the years of guys from like Old Japan, for example, let's say that come over and work, the one you didn't see was Misawa. You never saw Misawa when he was in Old Japan. Misawa, when he was in Old Japan, he was in Old Japan. And it wasn't like he was going to risk the Golden Goose, getting booked wrong at one of these New Japan shows. And I mean, I couldn't even see like Misawa, being booked. For me, and I think I've heard you say this too, Colin, like Misawa is probably my favorite Japanese wrestler of all time.
This obviously debate totally subjective, and it's come up a lot in the last few days because of a certain Wrestle Kingdom 17 match, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But I've said, I have a video on my channel, so you can call me out on this one, that Kenta Kobashi for me is the greatest wrestler of all time. Now that's a subjective, personal call and opinion. You don't have to agree with that. But I'm not gonna lie, XLJ. Every time I watch a Misawa match, and it's happening more and more these days, I question my judgment. I question whether I should be switching teams on the Four Pillars to Team Misawa, because he is absolutely sublime. He is sublime, and there is a certain wrestler who's now tied with him for the most 5-star plus matches according to Dave Meltzer, and it irks me, and I'll shut up about it for now.
That is mind-boggling, and we're gonna get into that in the deeper dive. I will say, like with the New Japan shows in the 2000s here, I mean, they were still putting on the Tokyo Dome shows, but if you look back at the history of New Japan was hurt. I mean, they weren't drawing nearly as much. Inoki was trying to experiment more with like an MMA-based style, and it was not clicking.
Something to mention too, XLJ, I think as we move on from the 90s, I'm sensing, is that January 4th show wasn't the nexus of the New Japan calendar. That wasn't what it was back then. It was just kind of like another show. I mean, the G1 was much, much bigger. Yeah. So even though now it's like Wrestle Kingdom, the culmination of everything and the beginning of everything else, it wasn't that back then. And it took so many years to get there, and even into the 2000s.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, it really was just kind of like, at best, dare I say, a secondary big show. Because you're right, like G1 was the G1. Yeah. But I do think too, once they kind of christened it Wrestle Kingdom, I think once it had like a good name to it, it was like, okay, like I could see this being the show. So, now let's just get right into the rest. Let's start talking about the Wrestle Kingdoms. Although I do want to mention the year before, though, the last one before that wasn't a Wrestle Kingdom in 05, Mr. B-Roll. Do you know who actually headlined that event?
I do not.
Believe it or not, it was for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. How about this matchup? You had Brock Lesnar against Shinsuke Nakamura.
So that's the Lesnar run in Japan. I did know he had a time there where he did win the belt.
Dark time.
It was
dark time. We should all forget about.
It's not as great as you think, my friend. Yeah. hopefully in your history, I'm not trying to knock this guy, but hopefully if you're going back and looking at new Japanese wrestling, don't watch anything Brock Lesnar. Don't watch anything Bob Sapp. There, I said it.
I definitely agree with the Bob Sapp. I'm actually like a just agnostic of Japanese pro wrestling. I really like Brock Lesnar. He goes both ways, love or hate. I really like Brock Lesnar, but he is the icon for, like, he's the personification of the worst thing to ever happen to New Japan. Like, other than Inoki, obviously, but he is almost the avatar of Inokiism aside from Inoki himself. And as you know, he won that belt in this like weird three-way where he just basically squashed a couple guys, and it was his debut in the company. It was the main event, and it's just none of it was good for me personally.
No, I totally and wholeheartedly agree. The Brock Lesnar run there, no, not so much. But yeah, so Wrestle Kingdom, the very first one, actually took place in 2000, and I have my note here. I think it was
7,
right? Yeah. So the very first one. Now the big thing with that was it was all about. Well, I shouldn't say all, but the main event was like a dream tag team matchup because you had, and it was honoring one of the Three Musketeers, the late great Shinya Hashimoto. And man, Shinya Hashimoto, we cannot forget to skip him. He had a ton of main events throughout the year on the January 4th show.
You know what the thing about Shinya is I think all of you out there, the people who we're talking here, the four of us, but people in the chat, people who see this afterwards, go and watch his matches and tell people about him, because he passed away relatively young. Unfortunately, he's one of the Three Musketeers. And because he passed away early, and because unlike Chono and Muto, he did not go outside of New Japan all that much. He obviously did. He broke with Inoki, but Muto or Chono was in WCW. So these guys got exposure, and so was obviously Muta. So these guys got international exposure. People know who they are. Western people don't know as much about Hashimoto, and man, that's a tragedy because he is freaking awesome, man.
He actually, so believe it or not, he actually did get to wrestle on a WCW pay-per-view.
Nice.
It was Great American Bash 92 as part of that tag team tournament.
Yeah.
But he was just filling in. I can't remember who it was that got injured, but Hashimoto was like the replacement. So it was kind of a last-minute deal.
Yeah.
But still, not nearly enough exposure in North America as the man should have got.
It's nothing compared to like Chono, for example, who had his own angles, singles matches, walkouts, and stuff like that on WCW TV, right? So he got all that exposure, and obviously Muto was everywhere, and the great Muta was a WCW debut and everything. And so Hashimoto, can't say enough good things.
And I would dare say this, maybe this is a controversial take, but all three of them are great, but I kind of like Hashimoto's my favorite out of all three of them.
I don't think saying he's your favorite is controversial, because who can deny what you think is your favorite? Right?
That's
absolutely.
I think Muto is the best wrestler out of all of them, and if you really love that pro wrestling style he represents, that's great. I think Chono had the most sort of hard-hitting personality and probably lacked the most in-ring ability.
Yeah.
Part of that, by the way, was due to Steve Austin, just as a completely different story here. But Hashimoto, to me, what he represents and what I think I vibe with him, and maybe you're the same, maybe this is why you said that, is he really had that Inoki New Japan fighting spirit. Like,
yep.
dude, when he came to the ring with his headband and he was going at people strong style, like, I don't know, you just believe in him.
Yeah. You wanted to support the guy. It's like you wanted to watch him wrestle, and then hopefully maybe afterwards you can go out and have a beer with him afterwards or some sake, whatever.
Hell yeah.
Hit up Ribera. Let's do it. But the first Wrestle Kingdom, though, so the main event, it was a dream tag team matchup. So you had Tenkozy going up against Masahiro Chono and the Great Muta. But this card was it was a pretty good one too, because you had some other awesome matches on this card as well. Like you had the IWGP Championship was on the line with Hiroshi Tanahashi, and I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's Tayakiya. Is that how you say it? Maybe I want to say something.
I think so. He's like from this All Japan era that like not a lot of people watched. So I don't know if anyone out there is going to correct you on that one.
Yeah, probably not. They're probably just like, who? Yeah, but hey, and by the way, folks, I can't say this enough. You know, we're going to try to cover this the best we can. We're probably going to miss some stuff, but remember, if you want to, you could always Wikipedia that shit, because everybody gets one. Anyway, sorry, had to get that in. But yeah, you're right, very much with that All Japan. And speaking, the Triple Crown title was on the line as well on this night with Yuji Nagata going up against Minoru Suzuki at the very first Wrestle Kingdom. And then how about this matchup? Shinsuke Nakamura against one of the four pillars, Kawada.
Yep.
Dude.
Yeah, that's a great matchup on paper. I can't recall it by memory, but on paper, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And you got like here, you got to keep in mind two folks when we're talking about this. When we're mentioning like Nakamura, this is young Nakamura. This is long before like, you know, his charismatic personality. Because if you watch Nakamura originally, it was more MMA based style fighting.
Well, he was coming up in that Inokiism era, right? So yeah, it was kind of like you had to sort of do that, and he had an aptitude for it, or get the hell out, quite frankly. And some people got the hell out. I mean, you mentioned Tenkozy before. Obviously, Mr. Cozy Lariat himself got the hell out. So
yeah, with Kojima, yeah,
and Kojima then, following Muto.
Yep. But
also XLJ, I don't know if you were going to cover this one or not, but this was an interesting piece of trivia for me. Do you know how the name Wrestle Kingdom came about?
No, actually, I don't. I would love to hear it though.
So apparently, and I would, you know, if Fumi Saito is watching this, you know, fact check me here, but apparently, there was between the previous year's January 4th show and the show to become known as Wrestle Kingdom, there was a video game released by Ukes. It was for Xbox 360 and PS2. It was a video game that featured All Japan, New Japan, and Noah, and three representatives from them were on the cover. The cover's like wild. It's like sick. And it was called Wrestle Kingdom. And that was before the event. No, it was not a video game about the event. It was before the event.
You know, it's crazy. I never put one and one together, but yeah, I do remember. Because I remember back in the day, my buddy, we would play the crap out of the Fire Pro G series, like on PlayStation. Man, that was our go-to. But I do remember that game like coming out, but I didn't even correlate that. Oh yeah, that's where the name Wrestle Kingdom come from. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Look up the cover, man. It's awesome. I think Misawa's on the cover of that one.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, and I think it was. I've never played the game, but I think the style of the game was kind of like among the lines of. I don't know if it's the same developers as Fire Pro G, but I think the style is still.
I wonder if we could play it, or if because it says it was just released in Japan.
Oh well, you could get like bootleg of it. Where there's a will, there's a way. I had my buddy actually had my buddy. He was super nerd into video games. He actually had like a Japanese PlayStation system. So,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, buddy. Good times. Oh, I love the 90s and the 2000s, man, growing up. Well, for me, not so
So
much
on the
2000, but
cover,
anyway.
it's Misawa, Chono, and
Why don't you pull up
Kyoji
the
Muda.
pic? Pull up the pic.
It's on my phone, but I could put it on the
Oh,
screen.
I thought you were looking at it on your
I
screen.
totally could if you just give me a minute.
I'm sorry.
I totally could.
Yeah.
You just keep rolling.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, that's interesting though that all things that the title come from like a video game, and it's just like, you know what, that's pretty catchy. I think we're just gonna roll with that, and then like here we are talking about like the biggest event in Japanese wrestling like every year, pretty much. It's Wrestle Kingdom.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And it's crazy too. I mean, XLJ, you touched on this a little earlier briefly, but I mean, apparently the word was that January 4th show was not doing so hot. It wasn't really drawing. A lot of tickets were free the last couple years. Even that Wrestle Kingdom 1 show apparently didn't do super well. And I had read that Meltzer was predicting that it might not happen the next year.
Yeah. And now here we are. Who would have thunk it, man? It's crazy.
Yeah.
So was this on Xbox 360?
And PlayStation, apparently it was both, but that 360 cover is that one's killer, man. That one looks awesome.
Okay. Oh, well, the graphics look really good. And it was Ukes that developed this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Nice. Now I guess. See, now I want to play this game somehow. Like I need to get it on an emulator or something. Yeah. That's very interesting though.
So
now
that looks like the second one.
Okay. That's on PS2.
I'm guessing that's the first
one.
one.
You got Kobashi and Sasaki there, it looks like, on the PS2 one.
Yeah.
Like an old man trying to look.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty blurry picture. You're forgiven for that one, I think.
Thanks. Wow.
All right.
Interesting.
That's pretty cool, though. I did not know such a thing existed. Oh, look, there's Tiger Mask.
There you go. Which Tiger Mask? It looks like it's Tiger Mask 1. Is that Tiger Mask 1?
Sayama? I mean, maybe if they have historical characters in there, yeah, they could.
That's what I'm guessing, because he's got like the color patterns on the tights. Huh.
He doesn't have those telltale green Misawa tights.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously the first one was a success, because then, like you say, like they were going to cut it off, but no, they kept running with it, and it's turned into the worldwide phenomenon that it is. Now, if you go to the next year's Wrestle Kingdom, which would be in 2008, this one kind of had a theme of being the USA versus Japan, which obviously we know they've done those all throughout the years there in North America. Like, you go back to WCW Starrcade 95 when they had New Japan going up against WCW. But this one was really defined by the relationship they had going on with TNA Wrestling, because this card is loaded with a bunch of TNA wrestlers. I mean, you got guys like AJ Styles, Petey Williams, Christian Cage, Abyss, Christopher Daniels, all on the card. You do have the Dudleys, or I'm sorry, Team 3D at the time, on this card as well. But the big matchup on this one, so as far as the TNA relationship, they had, how about this match? Kurt Angle 1-on-1 against Yuji Nagata.
Oh, and for you newer fans, look, Nagata might be, a little stiff in the legs now. Dude was a badass in his day. He just got screwed over by the whole Inokiism thing. I really don't think he got his shine. He was a badass. That is an awesome on-paper match.
Nagata is an amazing competitor. I mean, even you can go back to his WCW days where he was feuding with Ultimo Dragon. And I will go ahead and say this. Yuji Nagata was my third favorite wrestler on WCW NWO Revenge, since we're talking video games.
Damn.
He was my go-to, man. Those kicks. But yeah, Nagata was a badass, and he still is. So. But yeah, that matchup alone right there. Go back, like look it up on YouTube, watch it, or if you got New Japan World, you can go back and watch it there too. Obviously, I don't think it has English commentary, but still,
Oh,
phenomenal match.
You don't need English commentary. Yeah,
That's
I
true.
truly, I think like wrestling is its own language a lot of the time, and the way they tell the story in a good New Japan match, the way they tell the story, oh man, you just don't need that much context, you know?
That's true. Yeah, you can get by without it. So, and now the main event on this show was actually for the IWGP Championship, and you talk about two legends going at it, and this is in their prime, folks. Hiroshi Tanahashi defending the championship against Shinsuke Nakamura.
I mean, that is fundamental bedrock type of match for what New Japan is today. You know what I mean? Like that uh Tanahashi Nakamura thing got us to where we are today in every conceivable way. I mean, Tana is usually given the credit for kind of carrying the company through like its most down and darkest years. And Nakamura's, you know, at the very least second when it comes to that list of people who kind of put the company on their backs. And that rivalry between them, I mean, it's just foundational.
Yeah. No, I mean, you like you say, Colin, like these are the two guys really that are, especially Tanahashi, you know, kind of carrying the company throughout these dark times. And I guess we could kind of, I don't think New Japan has an official title of this era, if I'm not mistaken, but I guess we could kind of refer to it as the Wrestle Kingdom era, maybe at the beginning, so to speak. Yeah. Oh man, that's a great point there, Matt. Yeah, that Tanahashi is the John Cena of New Japan. I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's the face that runs the place.
He's the face, and he just
ace in New Japan.
He just gave a like, it sounds cliche, but he gave 110% in everything he did. He went all out, whether it was a house show or Wrestle Kingdom, and he did it in an era where everything was down. Everything, both because of macro cultural and macroeconomic situations in Japan, and because of what Inoki did to screw up a good thing. You know, all respect to the great Antonio Inoki, and just Tanahashi can't be given enough credit. So every time he comes out now, he still gives it 110%, and for what it's worth. And I think he should go down as one of the. I maybe this is just my age speaking. I think he might need to go down as the greatest New Japan Pro Wrestling star of all time. There's definitely some older people who want to slap me for saying that, but I just think what he did, like, yes, the Three Musketeers, love him to death, but the 90s was a gold rush. The 90s was good times. Tana took them through bad times, and I think that's worth a lot.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I mean, he's still going strong to this day. I feel like if you're talking a Mount Rushmore of the New Japan wrestlers, I really don't think anybody can dispute it. Tanahashi's in that list. Like you have to have him on there, whether you like him or not. It's like the same could be said here. In if you were doing a Mount Rushmore of WWE performers of all time, I don't think you can't argue and say that John Cena is not on that list. Whether you love him or hate him or whatever, still, like, you cannot not give him credit for his body of work.
You're right, and I actually think, I mean, I don't know, is there anyone who doesn't like Tana? Because with someone like Cena, for example, like, you know, you might have someone criticizing him for supposed you know, lack of technical ability in the ring. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you know, what you hear sometimes. There's no conceivable criticism you can give to Tanahashi, in my opinion.
No, I don't think there is, other than there's just so many great Japanese professional wrestlers. But I mean, still though, he's in the conversation. You can't dispute it. There is no argument. Tanahashi is on this list no matter what you say. Is he number one? You can debate that. Some will say yes, some will say no. But still, you can't disregard what the ace has done. And to me, for the ace, that I really think just was one of his earliest career defining moments is actually next year's Wrestle Kingdom 3. And I feel like Wrestle Kingdom 3 in the history of Wrestle Kingdoms is kind of almost like, maybe not as far as like drawing, But as far as like the significance of the card, kind of like what WrestleMania 3 was to WrestleMania lore. And I mainly say that because of your main event. Your main event was for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship with Hiroshi Tanahashi challenging Keiji Muta. And it was an awesome. I think this is like probably, in my opinion, the first really great Wrestle Kingdom. Not January 4th, but Wrestle Kingdom main event. I mean, this match goes for over 30 minutes. It's an incredible bout, and it's that age-old tale of the student becoming the teacher, right, so to speak.
Well, that's just it. I mean, stylistically, they're matched up very well. I think one of the things that made Tanahashi and Nakamura every time they clashed interesting is stylistically they are not a match. They are very different. They approach everything from technical ability to ring psychology to their entrance music, completely differently. But Muto and Tana, and that's who it was, right? Muto, you said? Yeah, Muto and Tana. I mean, those are two successive generations of that classic pro wrestler babyface from Japan. And I think Shota Umino is the next generation of that, by the way, which made the fact that all three of them tagged at this year's Wrestle Kingdom kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome moment too, man. I love seeing Shooter, and that team was so, like, the way they booked that, put those three guys together, chef's kiss.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
But this Wrestle Kingdom 3, there was some other significant moments and matches on here. And number one, this is the only Wrestle Kingdom show, Mr. B-Roll, believe it or not. Actually, Mitsuharu Misawa was on this show. Now, he was in a tag team matchup, teaming up with Takeshi Sugiura, going up against Shinsuke Nakamura and Hiroki Goto. As they were doing
Goto.
like a Goto. Yeah, Goto, sorry.
No. I get a kick out of Goto.
Yeah, a lot of people, let's talk about him briefly too, because it seems like he's a guy who doesn't get nearly enough flowers, especially like nowadays. I mean, I think the tag team combination of him and Yoshihashi, it's okay, but I really feel like they could be doing more with him in New Japan.
That's interesting. Yeah, really, to hear you say that. And I think Goto's career is a really interesting one to go over. And depending on where you got into New Japan, you're going to have very different stances on Goto. We kind of earlier we're talking about Wrestle Kingdom 9 as a really important one. Around that era, that middle of the 2010s decade, whatever you want to call it, Goto was up there, man. Like, he was main eventing. He was a badass. He was super over with everybody.
I mean, how many times has he won the G1 climax? Like, at least what, 2?
He is a multi-winner. Yeah. He is a multi-time winner. And that's a great example. The G1 climax. Watch his last, I don't know, 5 G1s. The guy's kind of a free point. Quite frankly. And even he, the last couple of years, has started to play on that in like promos and stuff, saying, oh, well, I've been doing really bad, and this is going to be the Goto one, and I'm going to go train with Shibata in America and stuff like that. And so it's just really interesting to see that change in him in a relatively short amount of years.
Yeah, and if you look at Goto, if you look at the early days of Wrestle Kingdom, the way he's booked versus now, it's like a night and day difference, because then he was booked as like a rising, like one of the top stars in New Japan. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? I don't know. I hope someday he gets credit where credit's due, but or at least get like a decent main event run, but time will tell. Also, one thing to point out on this Wrestle Kingdom 3 card, and we'll move on here. The Dudley Boys actually, Team 3D, actually won the IWGP Tag Team Championship on this card, as well as defeating the team of the most violent players of Togi Makabe and Toru Yano. And back when Toru Yano wasn't as much of a comedic wrestler as he is now.
Listen, there's a guy who, if you get an opinion about him, you can tell exactly when that person giving the opinion started watching New Japan. Because holy shit, back in the day, Yano was a scary man. He was a frightening man.
And a great amateur wrestler, too. A lot of people don't realize that about him.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, he could shoot for sure. Now look at him. He's hilarious. I love him now. But it's night and day.
Yeah, I know if CDC's in the CDC must be not be in the chat, or he'd already be chiming in on Yano.
Nice.
Like, I don't have a DVD near me, but buy this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hey, there's one more match I want to point out on this card that I thought was really cool. How about this tag team match for the IWGP Juniors Heavyweight Tag Titles? The Motor City Machine Guns going up against the team of No Limit, which was Tetsu Naito and Yujiro Takahashi, which those guys was a great tag team. Which you did actually get to see them have a little bit of a run in TNA wrestling as well.
You did. No Limit's really interesting for so many reasons, because you got these two guys. They're both, relatively newly graduated young lions, or relatively rookie guys, and they look like it too. And look at, take a pulse check a couple years after that, take a pulse check today, and they're in completely different spots, right? I mean,
my God.
Naito's sort of like almost deified. He's almost some sort of demon or god, from heaven or hell. Like he's just an 11 out of 10 guy, just a beautiful wrestler. And Yujiro Takahashi, hey dude, I like the guy. I will defend Yujiro Takahashi. I think he's fun, but he is always at the bottom of the card, and he has a really limited moveset, and he's got a great gimmick with Peter and everything, but just comparing him to Naito, it's so funny how different their paths were,
Like, I hate to use this analogy, but almost like Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
Hey, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I think,
but got to give some love to the Tokyo Pimp, though. I mean, come on, man.
Oh, dude, he's got a great thing going with Peter. I mean, that's over as hell. And you know what? He's like Kevin Nash, like he's got like 5 moves, and it's just different combinations of them. But you gotta love him, man. He does what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you go to we go fast forward to next year to Wrestle Kingdom 4. Once again, that relationship is still going strong with the TNA Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling, as you'd have some wrestlers on there on this card as well. I gotta say, 4, I think, is honestly, and no disrespect, but I think it's one of the more weaker of the Wrestle Kingdom cards. Your main event was actually for the IWGP Championship with Shinsuke Nakamura defending against Yoshihiro Takayama. Now, so a lot of you may not know who that is out there. Do yourself a favor, look him up, because this guy was a bad mother trucker. Let's say that. I mean, he MMA based fighter. Actually fought in Pride Fighting. Actually, I believe won some Pride fights as well. A little slow, let's say, especially at this point in his career. But I think I've kind of gone back on the history and kind of looked at this and seen this matchup, and I think it was just kind of a history of, like, I think he was kind of more or less like, I'm the true, like, MMA badass fighter. Nakamura was still kind of like, with that MMA based style. So that's kind of, I think, really was the premise of this main event.
And that makes total sense, right? Like they both occupy the same space stylistically, as you just pointed out. They're both badasses. One's established, one's a little bit more chip on his shoulder coming up. So really cool matchup on paper. Interesting as a main event, though. Interesting as a main event.
Yeah, because when you have other stars like Tanahashi on this card as well, but it's just, I don't know. For me, 4 is just kind of like that forgotten one, and rightfully so. Now we fast forward a year later to 5, different story, because at this one, the main event, you have got once again your IWGP Heavyweight Championship. You got Hiroshi Tanahashi challenging the champion Satoshi Kojima. And at this time frame, which I want to say is like 08, maybe? I can't remember the year. Or no, was this 2011, maybe?
Yeah, because we started in 07, so
that's right. It would be in 11.
Right now. Yeah.
So at the time, Kojima was on fire, man. He had won the G1 Climax years prior. He had won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And also, too, I think he was just coming off before that, I thought his a Triple Crown title run as well. So, like, at the time, Kojima was like hot as shit.
Well, that's just it. He recently came back from a very long stint in All Japan Pro Wrestling. He left in the early 2000s. I want to say 2002, but don't quote me. Fact check me on that with Keiji Muto. And he was super successful there. It was a great place for him to be. I think it was a really smart move on his part. And he comes back when the Enochiism stuff has like started to go away and been repaired. And he's like, "Oh, you do pro wrestling again? Okay, okay, let's go.
Let's do this."
Yeah.
Oh, good. Also, that TNA relationship was continuing on this card as well, because you would see several TNA wrestlers. Here's a matchup for you, Mr. B-Roll. How about this one? We were just talking about him. How about Toru Yano one-on-one with your favorite ECW original, Rob Van Dam?
Hey, sign me up for it.
I just remember Yano in the promos for this. You see it on like the opening VTR package where Yano's like, "Hoya, that's like, I don't know what the hell he's saying, but he's doing the Rob Van Dam thing." So
I have to go back and watch that. That is hilarious. RVD against Toru Yano. That's cool.
There you go, man. Also, you got to see a one-on-one matchup once again in their story of rivalry. Yuji Nagata against Murder Grandpa himself, Minoru Suzuki. I mean, anytime you get those two together, once again, chef's kiss. Just two of the most baddest men on the planet going against each other. And then you also had, how about this matchup for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship? You had Prince Devitt, who you all know as Finn Balor, going up against Kota Ibushi. And gosh, the matches they had throughout the years. But this is their first Wrestle Kingdom match.
Oh, man. Those two lightning in a bottle, you know?
Yeah. Perfect chemistry. If you've never, and once again, folks, this stuff we're talking about here tonight, if you haven't seen it, not that we're getting paid by them, go over to New Japan World, get you a subscription. It's 999 yen or 999, right? Here in the
something like that.
998, whatever, round it up to the whatever. Yeah. It's well worth your money, okay? Just say it.
It's super well worth your money. And listen, if you like really athletic pro wrestling, really like spot-based technical stuff, not that they don't tell a great story, they do, but those two, you're gonna be popping out of your seat. Trust me on that one.
Yeah. And speaking of New Japan World though, I'm gonna let you all know this now. I'm gonna have a challenge for each of you. So with me being the newbie, as I've been kind of just sitting here soaking in this knowledge, would it be too much to ask for each of you to give me 5 must-watch New Japan matches?
Oh, I could totally do that, but you're gonna have to maybe when we finish up after the show.
Yes. I'm not expecting it to while we're doing the show, you'd think in your head. No,
but
like
good.
If you could
I was like,
if you could message
number 1, number 2.
Just message me.
Absolutely, I can.
And to Matt, to answer your question about Devitt, so he wasn't in the body paint till a couple Wrestle Kingdoms after this, but it's coming up, trust me. But one more match I just want to point out on this card, and we're going to move on here. How about this matchup for the TNA World Title? Jeff Hardy defending against Tetsuya Naito. I mean, that's just who would have thunk that one? Jeff Hardy one-on-one against Naito.
Amazing. Two individuals who don't have limits. Those two men don't have limits. So that's scary. That is scary. It's like Naito and Ibushi, they had a program together a couple years ago, and it was scary. It got scary. They were so limitless. They pushed everything to its absolute bleeding edge. And I feel like, I don't think I've even seen that match, but I feel like Jeff Hardy and Naito would do the same.
Yeah, it was. I'll put this to you this way on this matchup. It sounds a lot better on paper than what it actually was. It was decent. It was okay. It was just like you could build it up so much in your mind, and it's just I don't think it lived up to the expectations.
Was that because it was a bad time for Jeff Hardy? Was
that's
that kind
part of it? Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of it. Yeah,
I see.
that's a good part of it. Yeah. So let's go a year later. Let's go to Wrestle Kingdom 6. And this is a historic one. Now, your main event was your IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And once again, we're in the Tanahashi era. So on this one, you have Hiroshi Tanahashi defending the title against Minoru Suzuki. And it was a great matchup. But what's historic about this one is this was the show where Kazuchika Okada had returned from his trip overseas. So now he's back in the fold of New Japan, and he comes out at the end of this match to challenge Tanahashi. And the crowd, and I think even Tanahashi, it's kind of just like, what the hell? You just got back here. Like, who are you? And of course, Okada. We all know about Okada, the greatness that is Okada. But this is really him coming back from excursion. So. And he actually wrestles Yoshihashi on this card in a short matchup.
Well, that's part of this whole story. So that's a really key beat in this story. So for those of you who are newer to New Japan, just divorce how you think of Okada right now, because this is pre all that. Like, he is not the Rainmaker right now. And in fact, that match against Yoshihashi, it was a shocker. It was a shocker. It was super quick, super fast, and the general sense is that it wasn't very good, and that Okada wasn't particularly good, and that this upstart young boy was coming to Tanahashi, the god.
Yeah.
And oh, why? Because you just beat another returning young boy. I think at the time, and it's hard to look at this retrospectively, but I think at the time Yoshihashi, who had just come back as well, was probably pegged as the more likely to succeed in the yearbook, in the New Japan yearbook.
Boy, how that went.
Well, I mean, Yoshihashi, I mean, we could get into this. I can't even fault the guy, because I feel like he's had a lot of cards stacked against him. He had that terrible injury. You guys remember that with the ring apron? He ran into it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, nasty injury.
And it wasn't the first injury he had, and I don't know. We all want Yoshihashi to succeed, but yeah, at this time it was a really kind of strange and bizarre occurrence that Okada came back, dumpstered his opponent and then challenged for the IWGP Heavyweight belt. Like, what right do you have?
Yeah, and it's interesting. We talk about like that Kings Road style of storytelling. You folks, you're going to see throughout the years of these Wrestle Kingdoms as we're going on talking about them. Like, you can see different stories being told throughout multiple Wrestle Kingdoms. And the first one that comes to my mind, it starts right here with Okada, really. Now, there's one more match I want to point out on this card as well. They were dubbing it a Battle of Geniuses. Keiji Muta going up against Tetsu Naito. And once again, this is like Naito, they're starting to finally like really push him as a singles competitor. But this isn't the Naito you folks know.
This is not the ungovernable one. This is the Stardust Genius.
Yeah. So just picture it this way: white meat babyface. That's going to come out the crowd and kiss your baby. I mean, that's what Naito was. He gets it done in the ring, has incredible fighting spirit. But yeah, that match also occurred on this Wrestle Kingdom as well.
Yeah, man. It just goes to show you, if the first, I don't want to call it gimmick, the first, personality, or the path you choose, that's a better way to put it. The first path you choose is not always going to be the correct one, because I remember he had this really bizarre mask he would wear, not in the ring, but on his ring walk, where it was like the one
wing, like kind of looking thing.
One wing. Yeah. And it was over half of his face. And it was almost, he had this like anime-esque persona, the Stardust Genius and the wing, and just the way he dressed, it was kind of like he was a character from an anime. And that's an
excellent way of putting it.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah, now Wrestle Kingdom 7. This is where I like to say business picks up, I think, because this is the first in their they had met before, but this is their first Wrestle Kingdom matchup, and it was teased the year prior. Kazuchika Okada going up against Hiroshi Tanahashi in the main event for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And folks, like Colin was saying, you just got to you got to look back, and this is like before like the true greatness that is Okada. This is just like he's at the precipice of just becoming this phenomenal mega star in Japan. But it was like it's the best way I can put it to you is like this. If you watched basketball back in the day, it was like Tanahashi was like the Detroit Pistons and Okada was like Michael Jordan with Chicago Bulls, where he could never beat him. Tried, and this was the start of that. Of course, Tanahashi does win this Wrestle Kingdom main event. But it's a hell of a matchup, man. It's an amazing matchup.
Yeah. And as I look at like just like the card and like the promos for it, like Okada is so young here. Like this is not the Rainmaker like
nope.
You were saying, like so young.
There's another match on here too. Or I guess they were dubbing it like the semi-main event. We talked about this guy a little bit earlier, but how about Kazuchika Sakuraba challenging for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship against King of Strong Style himself, Shinsuke Nakamura?
That's another great stylistic matchup where they both have the MMA background. Now Shinsuke's got it. Yeah, Shinsuke's been in MMA fights, but I mean he's a pro wrestler, right? It's an MMA style. Kazushi Sakuraba is an MMA fighter. He's not a pro wrestler with an MMA style. He's an MMA fighter, and who does a lot of pro wrestling. And so whenever he's in the ring, it's a treat. I mean, he still wrestles for Noah, and he actually just got announced for the card for Great Muda's retirement show on the 22nd.
Oh,
and when he did, Korakuen Hall was all ooh, because Sakuraba he's a treat. He's a shooter and he's a treat. And excellent
MMA fighter as well. And he was most notorious known for like defeating some of the Gracie clan. Or the Gracies.
Sakuraba double chop.
His nickname was the Gracie Killer.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge MMA guy, but even I understand how important the Gracies are and how good they were, especially in the earlier days.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, Wrestle Kingdom 8, I think, is a very important Wrestle Kingdom. And Mr. B-Roll, I've went on record of saying this many times, and I still go by this. Probably my favorite character, my favorite wrestler in New Japan right now, just because I love the story arc, was Tetsuya Naito. And I think this is really to the point where, like, Naito, like, all of the just frustration, it just has to come out, because Naito had won the G1 Climax the year prior, thus guaranteeing him a main event shot for the IWGP Championship against Kazuchika, or the IWGP champion, which was Kazuchika Okada. But this Wrestle Kingdom's different because they actually put it to a fan vote, because there was two big matchups they had. Okada and Naito was one, the other being Hiroshi Tanahashi and Shinsuke Nakamura for the IWGP Intercontinental title. Well, guess what? The fans voted for the Intercontinental title match to go on last. And it's like interesting, if you look back at the history of Naito, like Naito had come off a serious injury, come back and won the G1 Climax. He come back and got revenge against his former partner, who we mentioned earlier, Yujiro. Comes out to challenge Okada in, like, I think Naito's hometown at an event, and like the crowd's like just dead silent. And it's just like, seems like whatever momentum Naito, for some reason, the people just, I don't know if they got tired of him or what. And then you go into this main event, or this IWGP Championship matchup, and Naito ends up losing to Okada.
This is so pivotal. You're dead on when you talk about storylines. This is such a pivotal turning point moment in Naito's story. I mean, as far as why he lost momentum, something about the Stardust Genius just didn't speak to people. They didn't connect. Like, oh, the Stardust Genius, you're this anime guy, you do flips, you're a god. Like, I don't see myself in you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see, you're not struggling, you're not doing it, you don't, that fighting spirit or whatever. And so he comes into this, and could there be a bigger slap in the face? I mean, it's very gutsy of New Japan to do like an actual fan vote. Like, that's very risky of them. And their bluff was like completely called. And just imagine you're Naito, right? And you think, we made it, boys. My big push. We're in the main event. Nope, sorry. The fans said they actually want the Intercontinental Belt match to go after you. Just reality check, man. You want to talk about the co-main event upstaging the main event, which certainly happened this year. This is the penultimate, or this is the ultimate example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's and like you say, it's such a huge part and aspect of Naito's journey. I mean, it's just like this was like all that momentum he had, and it's like, nope, not anymore. Like that to me, that's why this is probably one of my more enjoyable Wrestle Kingdoms. And there's some other great matches on this card too. How about these guys that were friends, grew up together, going up against each other one-on-one? Hiroki Goto against Katsuyori Shibata. And a hell of a one-on-one matchup that these guys had.
Yep.
And then
That's
also
a strong style match right there.
Yeah, buddy. And then also too, Matt had mentioned this earlier. This was the night, you've probably seen clips of this footage throughout the history of Tokyo Dome shows, but with Prince Devitt coming out in that makeup that everybody's seen that's so iconic and comes out of the casket. But that match was on this card as well against Kota Ibushi. And Kota Ibushi would finally defeat Devitt and become the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion on this card as well. And speaking of Ibushi, man, like we talked about it earlier, but let's kind of talk about just a little bit since we spent a lot of time on it. But Wrestle Kingdom 9. Like you're saying, Colin, this is what got you hooked on New Japan. For me, it's what got me back into pro wrestling. And it was an amazing card, and Ibushi was in that semi-main event going against Nakamura.
Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom 9, I think, is amazing. I mean, if you look at the three final matches, AJ Styles, Tetsuya Naito, Nakamura, Ibushi, Tanahashi, Okada, you'd really struggle to find three better matches, with those guys from this era. Like I said before, you got the Suzuki Sakuraba thing, which was just an amazing sort of like, let's go left when they're going right moment. Yeah. Really cool look. And it just, that Wrestle Kingdom had everything for a new viewer, right? It had that crazy tag match that was just like junior heavyweight bliss. It had the MMA influence shoot stuff. It had the absolute best pro wrestling you're ever going to see. So just a diverse card.
Oh yeah. And also there was this guy who won the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship on the card too. Kenny Omega. I think you may have heard of him. Yeah.
Never heard of them.
There's a passing of the torch there a little bit, defeating Taguchi. Who, if you're a newer fan, you know him as the guy who shows his butt all the time. But,
Funky Weapon.
Funky Weapon. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, a year later, Wrestle Kingdom 10. Holy shit, this is a good Wrestle Kingdom. Like your double main event. Oh my God. So once again, we're getting Okada and Tanahashi 3. But guess what, folks? This is the one. This is the one where Okada finally defeats Tanahashi at the Tokyo Dome to retain his IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And a little bit of kind of like a passing of the torch, so to speak, in this matchup. But the other main event, though, was a dream matchup that everybody was clamoring to see. One-on-one for the IWGP Intercontinental title. Shinsuke Nakamura against AJ Styles. And you got to keep in mind this time frame. This is literally like a month later. AJ would be debuting in the WWE and making his appearance at the Royal Rumble. But that main event, that double main event, oh my God. And then, by the way, also, this was, as good as that was, this may be my favorite match on the card for the never openweight title. Katsuyori Shibata against Tomohiro Ishii.
Big match Ishii. When you get big match Ishii, you're going to go home happy. And that match was big match Ishii. Yeah, he seems to have really struck a chord with North American viewers. It's always amusing to me how much he is loved in North America, and deservedly so. He's awesome. But it's just kind of funny that this super stoic, super grumpy, like just like miniature tank of a strong style wrestler somehow is just over with everybody in America. I don't know exactly how that happened, but I love it.
Well, like I say, Mr. B-Roll and myself, we had the distinct privilege of being at the Impact show where he went one-on-one against Josh Alexander. Oh, that was a good matchup.
Yeah, we've had the privilege of seeing him twice.
Got to see him against Eddie Kingston at All Out.
Yeah.
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah, incredible performer. I love me some Ishii, man. But this Wrestle Kingdom 10 was great. Also, too, how about this one for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship? You had Kenny Omega defending against Kushida. Awesome matchup there as well.
Yeah, and Kushida, who's now back in the picture all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right. I think now is he still hurt though, or is he recovered yet?
I think. Okay, don't quote me. I think he's recovered, but obviously he didn't participate in Wrestle Kingdom. But I think like technically he's okay. So hopefully we'll see him back. That's what they said on commentary, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And then also on this card too, you did get you're getting your ungovernable Tetsuya Naito going up against Hiroki Goto. And I gotta be honest, I was really vibing for Naito at this point. I was kind of pissed that he got beat by Goto on this card, but I mean, it is what it is, right?
It goes to show what we spoke about earlier is true. Goto was on fire at one point. He had a ton of momentum. He was winning really big, important matches. It's weird to think of him beating Tetsuya Naito now, but at that time, that's what it was trending as, right?
Yeah, this is true. All right, Wrestle Kingdom 11. This is the one I think a lot of people can identify with because this is when, if you weren't watching it before, this is where you really heard about like New Japan because, folks, this is the main event.
You said Wrestle Kingdom 10 was good. To me, Wrestle
11.
Kingdom 11 was the one, man.
Yeah, I ain't going to argue with that, especially with this main event. It's right, folks. It's the one. Kazuchika Okada defending the IWGP Championship against Kenny Omega. The match that really put Kenny Omega on the map. My God, maybe the greatest Wrestle Kingdom / Tokyo Dome main event in history.
If I'm not mistaken, it is like Meltzer's highest rated match of all time, right?
I do think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and that still stands, by the way, after Wrestle Kingdom 17. So it's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's Okada, it's Omega, the start of their rivalry. Like, and I remember going into this one, like, I wasn't as hyped. And also keep this in mind, too, the greatness of Kenny Omega being the first ever Gaijin to win the G1 Climax.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. I had forgotten about that.
So it's just like, oh, wow, this is like...
As much as the main event commands all your attention, don't sleep on Goto and Shibata. That's a strong style match. Or Naito and Tanahashi. Because now you got me looking at the cards now, reminding myself, because I'm getting excited about these.
Yeah, this is, I think, like really just, this is where it's finally, I think Wrestle Kingdom's really coming into its own as being that, I mentioned this earlier, in my opinion, WrestleMania is the #1 event in all of wrestling, but right there, #2 is Wrestle Kingdom out of any company. I don't care what you say. It's Wrestle Kingdom all the way.
Yeah, you imagine how I feel. I'm just like almost like sitting here like licking my chops almost. That's why I want like these lists because I'm gonna invest some time in some New Japan world in the coming days. One of the things we haven't done it for a while but I guess I kind of created my own homework. You used to give me homework, but
I know we need to get back to doing that.
So right? I guess I kind of gave myself my own homework. So there you go. You're welcome.
Yeah, we will get back to that. Hey, there's another match on this card I want to talk about too. And this is another great competitor who everybody loves, but this was kind of a coming out party for him. How about Hiromu Takahashi winning the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship from Kushida? And him kind of just coming back from, I think, excursion at this time frame too.
Talk about a passing of the torch moment again, right? Kushida, the old guard, and Hiromu, thereafter, kind of the face of that division still is, obviously on his 4th or 5th run at this point. That's a real pivotal moment in the history of that junior heavyweight division.
Yeah, and like you say, it really is like a passing of the torch. And like, man, we talked 10 was amazing, 11 was amazing, but what about 12, the next one, in what arguably may be the best double main event of all time in a Wrestle Kingdom? Because I mean, these two matches are incredible. First of all, your IWGP Heavyweight Championship. It's Kazuchika Okada defending against Tetsu Naito, and Naito. It's like finally, for me personally, that was the number one match I wanted to see on this. But there's definitely a match on this card more people were talking about. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But for me, it was like, okay, Naito's been through it all, right? You know, we've talked about the story with him earlier. He's come back. He's with LI. Now he's formed his own stable, LIJ. He's won the G1 Climax. Like, this is it. He's going to be in the main event. It's a guarantee. He's going to be in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom. He's going for the world title. But then the most shocking thing happens because you're like, holy shit, they're going to get Chris Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom? Because, yes, folks, this is the Wrestle Kingdom where Chris Jericho would go one-on-one with Kenny Omega.
Man, now we're into the Jericho WrestleMania era. Wrestle Kingdom era. And little Freudian slip there. I have so many fond memories of all his matches in New Japan, particularly the Wrestle Kingdom ones. So when I was growing up, Jericho was my favorite wrestler. That tells you how old I am. He was the man for me. I've always been a huge fan, still am today. And the Painmaker stuff, yep. I love it. I know it's probably a love it or hate it thing. I love the Painmaker stuff. I love his matches. I know we're not there yet. He has one against Naito. It's going to be on that list, Mr. B-Roll. It's going to be on my list.
Freaking awesome matchup. But this matchup was great. And one thing I want to point out, just a little tidbit, little kind of trumpet of knowledge for you. You realize, Mr. B-Roll, Wrestle Kingdom 12, this was actually the first time ever where Chris Jericho walked out to Judas.
Really?
It's a true story. First time he ever come out to Judas was at this Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, there you go. I mean, this card I'm looking at it. It's incredibly stacked.
Also, too, how about this? You talk about a guy who is one of the top names in New Japan now, Jay White, coming back from excursion, coming back and debuting as the Switchblade. And, oh yeah, on this Wrestle Kingdom, guess what? He's going up against Hiroshi Tanahashi for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, I will say this. It's not quite the Jay White that you all know now, but still, though, like, when they brought him back, like, it was like they put him right into a top program against Tanahashi. And then also, you talked about this card, too. You got Goto against Suzuki for the Never Openweight title, and it's hair versus hair. You got the four-way match for the Junior Heavyweight Championship with Will Ospreay, Hiromi, Kushida, and the Phil and Marty Scurll. I mean, this card is freaking loaded.
Another long-term Kings Road storytelling moment to point out with Will Ospreay. When you go, any of you go back and watch that match, you're not going to recognize that kid. That was a really different Will Ospreay than we have now.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And then Kota Ibushi going one-on-one against Cody as well on this card too.
But yeah, the American Nightmare was around at this time.
That's right. But the one match I want to go back to is the finish of the Okada Naito match. I was so amped, so excited for this. This is finally going to be Naito's moment. And Okada wins. I was so fucking pissed off. And still to this day, but I mean, they would rectify it. But this New Japan's notorious for this, and a lot of y'all pissed off about what happened in the semi-main event of this year's Wrestle Kingdom. Well, maybe not a lot, but some. It's that Kings Road story style of telling, man. It takes a lot of time to get there to achieve that ultimate moment, that ultimate goal. And this just wasn't Naito's night.
As a really, really serious Naito fan, I don't even know if they rectified it. I know he got the 2 belts. I know
in my mind, that's what I'm going with. But you're right. There's still that part of me that's like, damn it, this should have been his night.
He didn't even, when he had those, when they finally got there, he didn't even have what he wanted, which was like a tour of Japan, a year-long run, an epic run. He didn't get it, and they made it into that one silly belt. And I need one more Naito run, man. What can I do to get that? Who can I pay?
I don't know. We got to figure it out, my friend, because I need it in my life as well. So
Yeah.
if we go forward one more year, Wrestle Kingdom 13, your main event was, and Kenny Omega is the current IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and he's going against G1 Climax winner Hiroshi Tanahashi, which was a surprise at the time, him winning the G1, because Tanahashi's kind of went lower down on the card, and just like he kind of just came out of the blue, so to speak. The ace is back, baby. And I think everybody, including myself, kind of thought it was a foregone conclusion that Omega was going to win the title. But here's another tidbit and a fact for you. Gaijin has never won in the main event of a Tokyo Dome show, or at least a Wrestle Kingdom show. And that would be the case here, as Tanahashi would win the IWGP Championship.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard that stat before. That's really interesting.
I know it's in Wrestle Kingdom now. I'd have to go look back and look at some of the Tokyo Dome shows, but I know they've never won in a Wrestle Kingdom show. So.
Maybe that changes next year.
Yeah, I was looking ahead. I kind of think something like that could happen, but you mentioned, Colin, you mentioned earlier, this other main event on this card was amazing. Tetsu Naito against Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental title.
Dude, it's nasty. It's absolutely despicable.
It's a war.
It's a war. I rewatched this last year or 2 years ago, somewhat recently. For some reason, I just put it on, and I was hanging. I think it was because I think Jericho was doing something at AEW that reminded me of it. And oh man, it's vicious, man. It's vicious. Like Jericho's like older in it, obviously. Tetsuya Naito's in his prime, but they both take some ruthless bumps, and it's a blast to watch.
Yeah, it was a really great matchup. And then one more I want to point out on this one, Jay White against Okada. But the crazy thing is, Jay White wins, defeats Okada. And at the time, I don't think anybody saw that coming. I thought for certain Okada was going to get the win. And thus started kind of like that storytelling of how Okada could never beat Jay White in Japan.
The 4-1, right? And now 4-2.
Yep. And one more important match to point out on this card as well, and had a lot to tie in with this year's Wrestle Kingdom. Will Ospreay against Kota Ibushi for the Never Openweight title was on this show as well.
That's a fun matchup right there.
Very fun. Matter of fact, I think this was the opener, like on the main card, was Ospreay and Ibushi.
Yeah, I think so. What I'm seeing is they had like a gauntlet match on the pre-show, and then this was the opener.
Yeah. Now, when we go to Wrestle Kingdom 14, this is the first one where we're really dealing with like the pandemic, and now we're going to 2 nights essentially. Which, let me ask you guys this: what were your thoughts of it going to 2 nights? I think you just answered it right there.
Hate it. In almost everything in life, less is more. I think in wrestling, it's definitely true. Less is more. You can't have, this is my opinion, you can't have something special. Wrestle Kingdom is special. It's a singular event. You cannot expand it and have it be as special just by definition. It's got to be one night. It's got to be one supercharged 11 out of 10, no mediocre matches, only incredible moments, situation. Having the 2 nights diluted it so much. Personally, I truly felt that the caliber of the matches were lower on the two night cards. They had to fill more time. Plus, they had to fill more time in the pandemic when they couldn't get as many gaijin over or get them over as easily, and fill bodies, so to speak. I didn't like it at all, man.
Yeah.
I did not like it at all. What they're doing this year, and I know they did it last year too, with the Yokohama thing that happens like weeks after. Sure, do that. Call that Wrestle Kingdom. Whatever.
It helps promote it and sells tickets. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sell some tickets on the brand. I get it. You're monetizing the Wrestle Kingdom brand. I get it. I'm with it. But just keep it to one night. Come on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oversaturation is definitely, as you're saying, takes away from the rarity and the specialty of it. If eventually everything you do is Wrestle Kingdom, you know what I mean? It's like when you meet Baron von Raschke, if you meet him every day, eventually he just becomes another guy that you've met. He's not the Baron von Raschke. Same with if you have multiple things that are supposed to be your pinnacle or your spectacle. it just becomes Monday Night Raw every Monday night.
It loses its luster.
Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely.
If the IWGP World Heavyweight Belt gets defended and changes hands every Cork and Hall show, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Hot potato.
We're spoiled as fans.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, I mean, one, we have access to it at the tip of our fingers, but I mean, week to week, we're almost seeing main event, pay-per-view caliber matches. I mean, we're spoiled, and in some ways, maybe we've become too spoiled in a lot of ways.
Well, and in a side note to that, I think that's one of the unfortunate things when we talk about whatever company or whatever style wrestling. When you put your guys that are your top wrestlers against each other as in normal matches, eventually those guys get moved down the card and they just become modern day, lack of a better term, jobber. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I think that hurts a lot of American professional wrestling is the guys that you want to see up there being pushed to the next level, but you use them every Monday night to wrestle the same guy. It gets lost. And I think that's the heavy thing about programming, though. When you're trying to put on 30 hours of programming, everything's going to get oversaturated and lost. Yeah. Same with, I'm in firm agreement. Wrestle Kingdom should be one night. WrestleMania should be one night. It should be. I mean, even if you expand it to 4 or 5 hours, it is what it is. But at least keep it blocked in there that this is the thing you're all trying to get to. This is where we're going to do our best work. Start a story, end a story, do our best work, present ourselves on a global stage. And now all of a sudden you seep into the next night and you're like, well, I kind of, yesterday's matches were better. You know what I'm trying to. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I feel like too, it was like in this era of these couple Wrestle Kingdoms, it was like just kind of putting guys like pulling double shifts night to night and then putting them in like a multi-man tag match. I mean, that's what New Year's Dash is for.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
But now this Wrestle Kingdom was historic for a couple reasons. Of course, first one comes to mind, the great Jushin Thunder Liger's last 2 retirement matches was on these cards. You also had, we kind of mentioned this earlier, finally Naito getting his moment, where they combined the Intercontinental and the IWGP Championship. So pretty much night 1 was Naito against Jay White for the Intercontinental title, and Okada against Ibushi for the IWGP Championship. Of course, Okada would win, and then Naito would win, and they combine them the next night. And finally, Naito would get his moment, and then that asshole Kenta would come out and ruin it. But that's another story for another time. Yeah, I mean, this Wrestle Kingdom, that's the first one, is being like 2 nights, and there's some other matches and moments on here. You did see Jon Moxley make his Wrestle Kingdom debut on this card as well for the going against Lance Archer for the U.S. title.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this though. Look at these matches. Tag match, 8-man tag match, tag match, 8-man tag match, 8-man tag match, 8-man tag match, tag match, Texas death match, and then it gets into singles matches. That's not Wrestle Kingdom. That's not Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, it's like balls to the wall from start to finish. That's what Wrestle Kingdom is known for. And like you've got some kind of, I hate to say this, but you've got kind of some piss break matches on these shows.
Some floof.
There you go. Then Wrestle Kingdom 15, the next one would be about, once again, the 2 nights. Now, this is where you finally have Kota Ibushi have his moment, as he would defeat Naito for the IWGP Championship on night 1, and would be in a classic on night 2 against Jay White, which I think still holds the record as the longest time for a Tokyo Dome main event. I think it's 48 minutes or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It says it's just a shade over 48 minutes, and that's a long match. The one that we were talking about earlier, potentially the best in Wrestle Kingdom history, was 46, I think. So.
Yeah. Oh no, I feel like a heel here. I completely forgot. One more we should have mentioned on the last Wrestle Kingdom. Wasn't that where Jericho went against Tanahashi on 14? I think. Yeah, I think it was Jericho against Tanahashi. I completely spaced that match. It which was okay, but it wasn't as good as Jericho's other outings, in my opinion.
It was good, but I agree. I mean, it was really hard to like. This is 3 Wrestle Kingdoms in a row Jericho's been to, and it's really hard to match up with that Naito match from the one previous. This was good though. I think this was a good match.
There's only one other match I can think of on the 15 card that really stood out was there's a really good one with and I think it's for the Never Open title with Shingo Takagi against Jeff Cobb.
Oh.
That was a great freaking matchup. Just 2 guys beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I remember that one. I don't know if Shingo like knows how to have a bad match. So
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you won't find a bigger Shingo supporter than me. So yeah.
You do also get on this card, I think on night 2 was the first matchup between Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada at a Wrestle Kingdom, which was a pretty good matchup as well. Actually, it may have been, if you take the Ibushi match out of it, probably the second, I would say the other best match of the weekend or the 2 days, whatever you want to call it. Now, one more we're going to talk about because we want to get into before we finish up here tonight. Talk about this year's Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Kingdom 16, last year's Wrestle Kingdom. So once again, 2 nights. Actually, this one was technically 3 nights because that's when they started with the Noah stuff. Oh, that's a good point, CDC, where Tanahashi cosplayed as the Painmaker. That was pretty funny.
I had forgotten about that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But last year's Wrestle Kingdom, so you had the main event was on night 1 was Shingo Takagi against Okada. Okada wins, and then he goes up against Will Ospreay on night 2, and Okada retains the title. I don't know. I can't really think of anything else that stuck out from last year's Wrestle Kingdom.
I think there's one thing. I think there is one thing. And that was night 2, that no DQ match between Kenta and Tana.
That was really good.
That was nasty. I think that was the match from that Wrestle Kingdom. Probably not in the moment, but as I look back on it, you asked me what I remember. I remember the brutality of that match. I remember
spots with the ladder in that matchup. I was like, holy crap.
They were crazy. The spots were nuts. And it was just like another example of how Tanahashi, like, don't you dare think for 1 second that this man isn't all in. Because at that age, with that resume, he is all fucking in.
Yeah,
put his body on the line. And so did Kenta. Kenta's a veteran as well. And I mean, they talk about this on the broadcast now, and it is true. He's got the scars on his back forever from that match.
From
and
this
he was
matchup,
out for a while.
Yeah. And I did not know it until I saw him at this year's Wrestle Kingdom. When the hell did he grow his hair out? Like, I did not realize. When he came out at first in the Rambo, I was like, "Is that fucking Kenta?"
Well, he was on the Noah New Year's show, so that's where I first saw it. But it was also a surprise to me. I was like, "Man, Kenta's looking good."
Yeah, like, good for you, pal. But hey, here we are. Let's talk about it, guys. This year's Wrestle Kingdom. Now, this was a Wrestle Kingdom. What'd you guys overall thoughts? What'd you think of this year's Wrestle Kingdom?
Great, solid, as always.
And this was Mr. B-Roll's first Wrestle Kingdom. I think.
What did you think?
Excellent Wrestle Kingdom for you to debut at.
I mean, okay, so at first when we sit down and he tells me, "Hey, we're gonna watch a 6-hour wrestling show," I was like, "Okay," but no, I mean, it was amazing.
It felt like 6 hours.
It did not feel like 6 hours.
Now, if you were watching at 3 a.m, maybe.
Yeah.
It was a long day.
But yeah, it was well worth dodging the spoilers. Yeah, I mean, really, not a bad match. Matches better than others.
Yeah.
But
I would say this, if I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way, my biggest gripe of matches and this was a good matchup. It just, geez, man, and I understand why it didn't get as much time because of the debut, but
I know what you're gonna say.
That Kari Tam Nakano matchup should have gotten more time.
They
that was
robbed
great.
those women.
Yeah,
they absolutely robbed them. They had less than 6 minutes. What they were able to do was great, and then they spent the whole time, on the Mercedes Moné Sasha Banks thing, which is fine, and I get it, and I know why. But like for me, I just wanted to see them wrestle more. I wanted at least 10 minutes for them, at like bare minimum 10 minutes.
I agree with that.
And I feel like Battle in the Valley, we're excited. Okay, we're going to get Mercedes against Kari, but I want to see a damn rematch with Kari and Tam, and give them like a half hour. Oh my God, that'd be an all-time classic, I think.
And it was low on the card too. I thought they were going to put it higher.
Yeah.
And speaking of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you count this because I don't think it was on the card. I think it was like the last dark match, pre-match, whatever you want to call it. But that Antonio Inoki Memorial match was rough.
A little ugly.
That was rough.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we were watching that too, and Mr. B-Roll made an astute observation. He'd never seen Togi Makabe before. He's like,
"Oh yeah,
who is this guy?" I was like, "Oh, that's Togi Makabe, man. He's like, master of the knee drop off top rope." He's like, "Well, he kind of looks like Guy Ferrari," and I'm like, "Oh shit, I cannot unsee this."
Well, it's funny that you would say that because he is really well known for loving like sweets, like candy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
But overall, I thought the card was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. Man, the just kind of breaking it down from start to finish, the kickoff with Catch. I'm going to call them 22. I still will call them 22 because it just sounds better. Against Leo Rush and Yo, but that bump Leo Rush took on the ramp. Yeah. Oh man, that was sick.
Which the ramp would end up being a star of the show for this Wrestle Kingdom. But yeah, the Leo Rush bump, and like remember I said like he almost looked like kind of like some Batman like Two-Face stuff because like it was running down just the one side of his face. And
well, I was pleasantly surprised by that match. Not that I thought it was going to be a bomb, but frankly, I'm really not sold on Yo at all, and I'm not emotionally invested in Leo Rush. I like him, but I don't really care about him.
Right.
So I was kind of like, yeah, cool, okay, whatever. And then no, it was great. It was fun.
Yeah, I thought it was a good matchup. I think that's. You kind of hit the nail on the head. I think that's what made it the most enjoyable is the fact that you weren't expecting a whole lot out of it, just to be like a decent opener. But it was actually a really good matchup.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Now the IWGP Tag Team Championship, knew it was going to be kind of short. It was, but I mean, it's still FTR and Bushman got their stuff in. You kind of knew Goto and Hashi were going to win because I mean, it just the momentum FTR's lost over the past couple months here. You just knew like this is going to be the end of their title run, an awesome year they had in 2022.
Yeah, I mean it's like exactly what you said. They got their stuff in, and I just think for me, it didn't show us anything new, which was why I was like, okay, that was fun. It didn't show us something brand new, like the Leo Rush bump. That was new. Some of the stuff that happened in the Omega match, like that was new, but we know what Bishamon against FTR looks like, and it was good and it was solid, but we know.
Well, that's the thing I think too. If you look in the history we've been talking about here tonight, I can't think like we haven't really went into a whole lot of history on the IWGP Tag Team Championship matchups because there hasn't been anyone that's like you remember it's the same formula every year. You win World Tag League, you go to Wrestle Kingdom, you win the tag team titles, and you have a run for a couple months or whatever. It's like wash, rinse, repeat, recycle.
For a long time, God were really dominant, and they're a blast to watch. I really like God, but you're right. When we look back on Wrestle Kingdoms, I often remember in terms of tag matches, the junior tag matches. I think more sometimes.
Yeah. That's a very good point. And then also we had on this night the finals of the New Japan TV title tournament with Zack Sabre Jr. Finally getting his first singles championship.
This was a really good match.
I had this pegged and this is facts. You can check my video on it, but I had this pegged as my sleeper match of the night, like my potential show stealer. It turns out it would not be able to steal the show. But it was a great match.
Great matchup,
And
though.
I was shocked when they said out loud, like you guys maybe were tracking this. I wasn't. I was shocked when they were like, oh yeah, Zack Sabre Jr.'s never held a singles title in New Japan. I never put two and two together. I was like, that's a travesty.
Yeah.
But yeah. For me personally, this was my favorite match, like of other stuff. And I'm not saying that it was better than the other matches, but for me, these are the type of matches when I watch a card and you're like, okay, what do we got here? And then all of a sudden, both, it's a great performance. Everything was done well, I think, from beginning to end. But that's just me. I loved all the other matches, but if you go back and you say, what's your favorite out of this whole card? That's going to be for me, that match.
You're right, CDC. I love me some Zack Sabre Jr. Yeah, this was a hell of a matchup.
And the debut of a new stable, possibly.
Yeah, reuniting with TMDK.
Oh yeah, I thought that was a bit funny. I don't know how I feel about that. I think Zach's a lone wolf personally. That's
I agree with you. Yeah.
One thing if you catch, here's a cheap plug. If you catch our reaction show this upcoming Wednesday on Cole TV, one thing that threw me off about this Zack Sabre Jr. match was the hair. Like, what the heck? I don't like the blonde hair. It looks weird to me. Yeah. And that's true. Yeah, not a new stable, but a new leader in CSJ. But speaking of Mr. CDC there, he had a prediction on our prediction show about the next matchup, the Never Openweight Championship matchup with Tama Tonga and Carl Anderson, thinking it'd be like a really quick kind of squash matchup. But actually, we got a little bit of time. We got close to about a 10-minute encounter. I like this matchup. I just like the historical significance with it being the two most identifiable members of the Bullet Club, in my opinion, with Tama Tonga and Carl Anderson. But the finish was a little kind of confusing. I don't think it went right as they had planned, but still, I thought it was an all right match. I was okay with it.
Yeah, this one wasn't for me. Honestly, it just wasn't for me. And I said this in my prediction video too. It was never going to be the world's greatest wrestling match, so I didn't go into it thinking that. I didn't have funny expectations, but nothing about it charged me up, and I like Tama Tonga a lot, and that botched finish kind of killed it for me, and we all knew where the belt was going. I was surprised at how high up on the card it was. I would have preferred the women's match to be in that spot.
I think if you flip-flopped them, I kind of would have died.
I think they should have been flipped. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. I don't know.
I do find it still kind of difficult for me to see like babyface Tonga, because I can't. I always go back to like in the Bullet Club, in the one year where they were doing he was part of the G1 Climax doing an interview. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Omega's Kenny's leader. I don't give a fuck. Like just that I don't give a shit attitude, and like now he's like babyface. Like I love this. I don't know. It's just kind of it's kind of hard for me to still adjust. But I love me some Tama Tonga though, nonetheless. So
I guess for me, the cool part of this match that it was even on the card is this is our show where we have AEW contracted wrestlers, WWE contracted wrestlers, New Japan contracted wrestlers, as well. If you even look at you have Stardom as well, all on the same card. So that's one of the things that was really cool.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. It's a very cool statistic. Let me ask you guys this: what were your thoughts on like Keiji Muta's last match in the New Japan?
You go, Nick. I feel like you have something to say.
I really don't. I think that's about what you can expect for something like that. I don't think anybody really want to see him in a one-on-one 25-minute battle. You put it in there with a 6-man tag. I appreciate. It's hard. Muta's a guy that, as being young, developing a young sense of professional wrestling. Muta and Sting are always in my head, are always going to be protected by, like, for me.
Right.
They can't do wrong. They did what they did, and I appreciate 6-man tags, especially stuff like when I have a personal opinion when your knees are shot and I don't mean this any disrespect, but you're over your productivity. You have to kind of hide that stuff. It is what it is. I love seeing Muta in the dome, in the thing, and to me the entrance was the thing with the masks coming out, and just the respect. It is what it is. It, obviously it wasn't what the other matches were, but well, and I think it was a good representation and a nice way to say thank you. This is it, and now we're going to move on to the final phases of your career and stuff like that. But that's me.
Yeah. No, I think one thing we do need to keep in mind too is that Muta come off, a couple days later. He wrestled Nakamura.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too, so, and that was a really good matchup, I thought.
I thought there were going to be a little bit more cute moments, and there were some. Like I really liked. We're all going to remember this forever. I feel like when he goes for the moonsault. And Tana's like,
"Yeah, oh, absolutely,
you're good. Like, why don't you step down?" Like,
excellent point. Yeah,
everybody loved that. I know everybody did. I loved it. I'm never going to forget that. I thought that was hilarious. I thought there was going to be a little bit more interplay. Not that there was none. With him and Sonata being the protege, the All Japan guy. I thought there's going to be more play with him and Naito. Like you said, Nick, I think it was what it was. It delivered on what it said it was going to deliver on. And I'll remember that cute little moment. And it gave me that.
And I think the biggest takeaway I feel like from this is Shooter getting his moment.
Oh yeah,
and getting the pinfall victory in this matchup, and definitely a future superstar in the making there.
Oh yeah, and the pairing of that team. I mean, you have 3 generations there, and it's just awesome to see.
It's the 3 generations; they all represent the same thing. So
it's very cool.
Then how about the IWGP 4-way for the Junior Heavyweight Championship? Kind of going into it, thought it would be pretty decent, but it kind of surprised me. It was a little bit better than I thought it was going to be, with Hiromi picking up the win, which I got to admit surprised me because even though I don't like the guy, I had a feeling Watto was going to win this one. I just felt like, but I thought Watto actually. I don't know. I'll get your guys' opinions on this. I thought this is probably the best I've seen Watto, but I'm still not a fan of Watto.
This was the best I've seen Watto, and I agree with you that I thought there was a chance they were going to give it to him. With the three kind of gods of the current junior heavyweight division, and then the new up and comer. But saying this is the best that we've seen Watto, like with all due respect, is like not the highest bar ever. Well, Watto. He grew on me a little bit after this match. I'm still not sold on the guy. I really need to see more. And he really needs to not be Master Watto, by the way. I'm sorry. He just cannot be Master Watto, the karate kung fu dude. Like it ain't working.
He looks like he works at a Geek Squad at Best Buy.
I know, right?
What it reminds me of.
No, it doesn't work for him. I'm not saying it can't work for anyone else. It doesn't work for him, in my opinion. But I agree with you. I don't like 4-way matches personally. I think you're stacking the deck of it being not a great match. It's hard to tell a story. It's hard to have coherency. It's really hard. But they did a good job, and there were some fun moments. And shout out to the New Japan production crew, by the way. There were some fun moments where they framed a certain piece of action on camera. Someone's getting pinned, someone's whatever in a F Watto in the chat, and someone's in a submission hold, and then somebody there's a moment like this with Watto would come into frame flying, flying into frame and hit the guy and break the pin up. And there was some fun stuff like that really felt like, oh, this is a chaotic junior heavyweight 4-way. Oh my God, all these things are happening. So I think they did a good job.
It served its purpose, but let's get to it, boys. The match everybody's talking about. The IWGP, your semi-main event, your U.S. title match, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay. What were your thoughts?
It's funny you ask, because before I jumped on here, and as soon as I jump off, I'll continue. I finally recorded a video about it. I wrote it yesterday. I sat on it. I edited it, and then I recorded it today. And it took me a long time because I really had to think about this match. I had to watch it a couple times. And I had to let it sit. I didn't want to just shoot from the hip, on Twitter. Just, oh, la, 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 la. I had to let it sit. And I feel like it was just a roller coaster ride. It was a journey. There were times where this match gave me the thing that I'm in pro wrestling for, the thing that I watch pro wrestling for, which is that suspension of disbelief, sort of like out of body moment. There was a moment, I watched it with a friend of mine, and there was a moment where I had my head in my hands like this, and I got up and I screamed, and I walked to the other room. You know what I mean? I did one of those, and it was just, I think that's kind of the magic of pro wrestling. I just lost my mind in that moment. It was all real. Nothing else in the world mattered more than, would he kick out, or was he going to do that spot? And
the emotions from that matchup. Oh my gosh.
The emotions were incredible. Yeah. And, just to put a bow on it, I think it was all about storytelling. Yes, it was incredibly physical. Yes, it was technically freaking amazing. And yeah, it was emotional, but it's all about the storytelling. And, I just believed in Will Ospreay. I believed in him, the character, the person, the wrestler.
We talked about moments like earlier with Naito being the pivotal moment for him at Wrestle Kingdom 8. I honestly, now I've kind of sat on it, thought about, I think this is Ospreay's pivotal moment in his career, of his story.
Well, and that's the one thing, like, as you watch the match and you dissect the match from beginning to end and all that stuff, one of the key things, and I hope some of the newer fans to this watch the press conference where he has the break. And for me, this is, I know a lot of people have opinions in that, but this is the kind of stuff that, like, okay, he couldn't get the win. It's, he's drained. It's this. Now, what do we do from here? That's why I love wrestling. I don't jump right at it. It's like, let's see what happens. And maybe from here, it won't pan out to be what we want it to be. It doesn't. But the
all
thing
about that
is,
journey.
You have to watch, that's like you guys have been talking about, watching Okada's evolution. That's why I love the Wrestle Kingdoms. And if you really look at it, is very similar to 70s, 80s territories, where you watch a guy go from black, and same with the New Japan philosophy, the black trunks to rock and roll music to learning different holds and crafts. It is amazing to watch this. Same with the plight of guys being able to beat certain people and not being able to beat. That is one of the things that I get. Like, if you watch any other sports, certain teams can't get that win, and you're like, this has got to be the time. This has got to be it. And now I'm invested after watching that entire great painting that they did in the ring, and then his little subtle nuances at the press conference makes me so excited for their future and what else they can go to. But that's just me, and I really hope that people can kind of just ride with it and appreciate what they gave you in the ring physicality, but more importantly, like with the illustration and their verbal nuances to bring you to the next level of what's happening.
Great call with the press conference. I felt the exact same way. I kind of threw it on right after, because like you guys, I didn't watch it. Some of you guys, I didn't watch it live, so I was able to throw it right on with the subtitles and stuff. Not you need it for Ospreay. And he just, it was almost, I know this is going to sound stupid. It's going to sound silly.
No.
It was almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the reason why Shakespeare's stories resonate with us today, it's because he's an incredible storyteller. And when Will Ospreay has his head in his hands, we all just saw what he went through. And he says, why do I even fucking try?
Yeah.
You're just like, holy shit.
It's so related. Everybody's going through
who hasn't felt like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it makes you believe it's 100% real. And, I've said it before, and I believe I'm still in this from, Tommy Dreamer, but professional wrestling is best when the lines between fantasy and reality are blurred. You cannot look at that press conference and not believe that was 100% Will, or 100% real for Will Ospreay in that moment. I mean,
And here's the thing: we're talking about this matchup and everything about it. And Kenny Omega won the match. He's the U.S. champion. But who are we talking about? We're talking about Will Ospreay. I mean, you talk about a going over and getting over type of scenario, folks, in wrestling. That's exactly what that match was. And kudos to Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay.
Oh,
my gosh, just the physicality, the brutality, the story told throughout. I mean, here's the thing. Go back in that matchup. Just look at the facials between Kenny and look at the facials on Ospreay in that matchup. And that tells you the story right there. And that's when it just all comes together. And it's just, chef's kiss.
I don't know. And I'm sure there's other instances that reach this level. I don't know if I can recall selling a concussion essentially better than Ospreay did. Like, do you remember when he gets up, he's gone through the table, he's got all the blood, and he's on the outside of the ring, and he gets up, he has to get back in, there's a count going, I think, and he hits the rail, he grabs the rail, and he's sideways, but there's this completely vacant look in his head, and just the way his body is sideways. If you've ever seen someone who is concussed, or B has had so much alcohol, they don't know even where they are. That's what they look like. That's what they look like. It wasn't over. It was just, I don't know, man. He must have studied knockouts because he just nailed it.
Captured it to a T. I mean, it was just incredible. The whole thing, all of it was incredible.
Yeah, this match from the beginning, even from the entrances with Omega being the cleaner, Ospreay was it the assassin? Yes.
Let's talk about the entrance because I got goosebumps on the Ospreay entrance.
It was big match feel. Big match feel
playing from his old theme, and then him coming out to Elevation. Oh, I marked the fuck out.
All the mist too. Really cool. Yes. Really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. The whole
not to mention the United Empire. They're his army, his soldiers.
I just feel like every a lot of times in wrestling, we come across, these dream matchups, right? They get built up in our head, and it's just like they can't live up to the expectations. Well, guess what? This lived up to the expectations and went above and beyond. So I just felt bad, really, for Okada and Jay White having to follow this.
God, yeah.
And Mr. B-Roll made a great point in our reaction video, which will be available on Cole TV this Wednesday, just saying. But cheap plug. But you made a good point, and I kind of want to go back and watch that match, the main event match with White and Okada, just to kind of get a different kind of feel for it, because we were just coming off the high of Ospreay and Omega, because it wasn't a bad main event. It was a pretty decent main event, and of course
told
Okada
a great story as well.
They told a great story as well, with Okada never being able. I mean, Okada, the god, of everything. He's done everything there is to do in New Japan Pro Wrestling, except. Beat Jay White.
You know what? You're right. On any other night, but it wasn't any other night. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. And I felt bad for them too. And you know what? It's just like, it was really good. But having watched all of their previous work together, and I said this in my prediction video, the question is, are they going to show us something new? And I do not believe we saw something new. All of the payoffs, like Jay White starts off cocky, technically sound, actually kind of one-for-oneing Okada, kind of owning him at first. Okada makes his heartfelt comeback, gets his stuff in. Jay White's on the defensive now. He's getting frustrated, flustered. Gato comes in. Okada gets these, nice cheap pops off of throwing Gato off the ropes. Gato's going, no. I've seen it a million times. It's great. It's a great movie, but I've seen the movie before. That's the only thing I can say,
I feel like they just kind of, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to the two, but I almost feel like they just kind of played it safe. In this one, it wasn't anything like that. I think it was like they already knew, okay, fuck, we're not going to be able to top this, so let's just have a decent matchup, and people will be more memorable of our other matchups. I don't know. That's kind of, like I say, I want to go back and rewatch that match and give it the credit that's due, but I don't know. It's just like you say, it was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And then you get Shingo coming out at the end to become the next challenger. I love me some Shingo, but I gotta say I was a little disappointed because in my mind I was like, okay, surely to God they're gonna finally pull the trigger and this is gonna be Ibushi coming back, but didn't happen.
I wasn't even thinking that. To me, I had written off Ibushi, completely. I truly, I'm being honest with you when I say he didn't enter my mind during this Wrestle Kingdom, because I really think he ain't coming back, at least not for a while. Shingo got a little pop from me because I'm also a Shingo fan, but then it was bittersweet because I was like, damn. So Shingo's the first defense. They're not gonna give him like a gimme defense where it's like some like easy win. They're gonna give him a real opponent, but like, obviously Shingo's, it's not gonna happen. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. But I mean that'll be a fun match into itself, but it's like you say, it's a foregone conclusion. Okada's gonna retain. So I mean, I really feel like from here with Ospreay, like where does he go from here? And New Japan, that's one other thing that's great about New Japan. Like you can try to, book it as much as you want, but you're never gonna truly figure out all the pieces to the puzzle. And I feel like, to me, I would think, okay, Ospreay's gotta win the G1 and then go to Wrestle Kingdom next year and win in the main event. But who knows? That may not happen. They may be going a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I like where it's headed already. If you saw New Year's Dash, he came out defeated, like utterly defeated.
Yeah.
Again, he played it. He played it perfectly.
Yeah.
He came out defeated mentally and physically, and then had a moment where he snapped, took all his anger and his frustration out on someone who had nothing to do with it. And it was just like, yeah, that's exactly how you feel after a real shitty night,
Yeah. And I will say, talking about Wrestle Kingdom, the night 2, I am looking forward to, but I'm mainly looking forward to it mostly because after watching Noah's show, and now I'm familiar with Congo and like what those guys are bringing to the table.
Let me tell you, that card is fucking awesome.
Yes,
if you don't know Noah, you got to go and watch that. Particularly, again, let's talk about Shingo. Shingo Nakajima is like, circle that on your calendars, folks. That's the match. That is incredible. I love that it's all singles matches. I'm so excited that LIJ.
Yeah, I'm glad they went with that route too. By the way, Colin, I totally agree.
Oh, you mean you weren't looking forward to another 8-man tag?
Yeah. When they were doing the presser and were announcing the matchups, and it was like, one single match. Oh fuck yeah, this is going to be like some actual like emphasis put on this like LIJ against Congo. This is going to be badass. Because when we were watching, what was it? I think in the juniors matchup, they even came on and announced that there was a scuffle at the press conference between LIJ and Congo. So
yeah, they did, which I'm glad that they did, because I then went back and I scrubbed through the backstage commentary to find that part, because I didn't watch everyone's backstage commentary, so I'm glad they mentioned that.
Yeah. But all in all, I thought it was a great Wrestle Kingdom this year. But that Ospreay Omega match is one we're going to be talking about for years. So.
Yeah.
It was, you could say, elevated.
But I like it. So. Well, we've gone into overtime here, folks, but we kind of had a feeling we would, because, hey, we're talking about Wrestle Kingdom, which has just got a long and illustrious and glorious history to it. But as we like to do with all of our shows when we close out, Mr. B-Roll, I think it's time for one last we'll plug a palooza.
Yes, I want to make this one short.
Oh, you're doing a shot. So.
Short and quick. Well, it is tradition. You recognize this bottle, buddy?
Oh, it's a little Grey Goose. I got you.
Yeah, you bought it for me.
There you go.
So it is tradition.
Happy Kwanzaa, my friend.
It is tradition. I meant to have this last week, but I forgot to grab it. Yeah, I'm going to keep this really short. You found us here on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. Go ahead and drop that follow. You can go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to. If you have a Amazon Prime membership, you can use that Prime membership to get a free subscription. All you got to do is Google it. Also, we're over on me and XOJ. We're over on Cole TV. You can go ahead and drop us a follow or subscription there over on the YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. Really want to thank our guests tonight, Nicholas and
thank you,
Colin. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, at this point, I think if either of you had anything that you would want to plug, I would say the floor is yours.
Only thing I would say is thanks for having me on. I apologize for talking too much. That's definitely why we went over time. So that's my bad. That is my bad.
Oh, no. We do go over time a lot on this show. You can ask our viewers.
Good.
Thankfully, there's not a show after us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel really bad for them. Basically, that would be like following the Omega Osprey match, you know?
There you go.
But no, I would just say if you're interested in more Puro content, more Japanese wrestling content, not just New Japan, but a lot of New Japan, introductory stuff that's friendly to casual, stuff that you can send to your friends and say, hey, man, this is really cool. And I think you'll like it too. And this guy's going to explain it to you. You could check out my stuff. I primarily publish on TikTok right now. It's at Wrestling Colin. I have YouTube as well. And I do upload those as shorts. Maybe 50% of the time. And I made a Twitter account for it too. It's pretty much brand new, but yeah, I'm there if you want to have more of a conversation.
There you go. How about you, Nicholas?
I got nothing to plug. I just want to say thank you. I always appreciate when you guys invite me on. I don't really add too much, and I hopefully don't kill your ratings, but I enjoyed the last 2.5 hours. Colin is just fantastic. His knowledge has been extremely impressive to me, and his presentation, you very well spoken. XLJ, of course, Mr. B-Roll. You guys, all three of you, made this last 2 hours go by quite quickly. I love talking wrestling. I love listening to wrestling. I also am over on TikTok at Simply Nicholas. I post mainly old clips that I find interesting or just nonsense. But absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And anytime you guys want to get together and talk wrestling, Japanese, whatever, and you need to fill a slot, please invite me back. I loved it. And one last thing is, if we ever can do those kaiju battle watch-alongs, I would love to do that. I still think about that night watching that video.
Yeah.
We need to do that. That was a grandiose.
I am one of the guys that really takes professional wrestling very serious, but I absolutely love having a good time in the ring. And that was real fun to watch that day. And thank you. Just thank you guys.
Yeah, it definitely was a blast having both of you on. And, thank you for going into overtime with us. Without further ado, I think it's shot time. Take us home, XLJ the OG.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here tonight on Learning the Ropes. And once again, thank you to our guests, Colin and Nicholas. You guys are amazing. And if you're not following them, folks, go and give them a follow. It's well worth it. Well, we'll see you next week here back on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel here. I'm XLJ the OG along with Mr. B-Roll. And thank you for joining us here tonight on Learning the Ropes, where we got to talk about one of our favorite topics, Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo Dome. I had to get it in once, brother.